that before. Bry Guy says, I thought a truck crashed into my house. Everything shook for like 45 seconds. Joe says, it felt like when the washing machine is off balance when there's a quilt or a comforter there, but way more intense. I can tell you that I live near Conshohocken, up on a hill, and a lot of my neighbors in my neighborhood live right on, the Schuylkill, and they said it felt like there was a car accident on the highway. So a lot of people are saying that it felt like there was something going on outside of their house that they really couldn't explain. And Karen, to your point, a lot of people who are driving say they either thought they went through a pothole or went over some kind of bump in the road. Everyone seems to have felt something. I can tell you this, the camera guy working that crazy steady cam, he didn't feel it. I felt nothing, even though other people did. He's like, nope, I did not. But the point is this, there was one, it's confirmed, 4.8, which is nothing small, nothing to just, ignore. And certainly we're going to be on this for the rest of the day.
I think it was about in depth, about 6 miles in depth. So, enough towards the surface, shallow enough that it was felt over a wide area. That's why we felt it over such a wide span.
I certainly didn't feel it. I was told we were in the middle of broadcast. Jen, thank you. We'll check back in. I know you're checking social media as well, but as we've all said a number of times, a 4.8. I do want to get to Drew because, Drew, there are several factors here. And the main question initially is man-made or natural cause? This certainly was natural. What you're seeing so far?
Yeah, and the reason for that is it is in an area where we have a fault. A fault is a crack in the rocks, and because the rocks settle over time, even thousands of years later from when the Appalachian Mountains formed, which is the reason for these cracks in the rock in our region, they still are settling, and that causes earthquakes. In this region in Hunterdon County, that's just across from the Lehigh Valley in New Jersey, where this earthquake at a 4.8 magnitude occurred, that is known to have other earthquakes. In fact, just last month, I'll show you on our Barron computer, we have multiple computers monitoring different things from earthquakes to the weather and all that sort of thing. What was interesting was just last month, they had an earthquake, but the magnitude was much less. It was about, and I'll pull up, I was looking at different things. This one was about in the 2 scale, and that makes a big difference. A jump from 2 to 4 doesn't sound like much, but in terms of how much shaking you get and how far that shaking is felt, makes a huge difference. So this is in the same region in the Hunterdon County area. From just last month, it looks like 3/14, so March 14th. And to give you a feel of this scale, so that one that was on the weaker side, it says often felt, but it just causes minor damage at that. The one that we had today comes in on this scale at, and we're talking the Mercalli intensity scale, it comes in at that kind of, minor damage sort of range as well, was on the higher end of that. So they say at the worst, maybe some minor damage to a building. For us here on the 3rd floor, the ones that did feel it, we were all sit in the seat. And because of that, we had more points in contact with the ground to feel it. So this is what I was looking at right there. And this is according from Michigan Tech, talking about the earthquake magnitude scale. The fault that is in that part of New Jersey, there it is. It's showing you some of the cracks in the rock. And so that region is prone to different earthquakes. And I was looking at this map. This comes from the Pennsylvania side of the United States Geological Survey. Those are the folks, the entity of the government, similar to the National Weather Service, that monitor earth events. So in other words, like earthquakes. All those red dots you see are 2 pieces of information in one. So first of all, the size of it means it was a much higher magnitude earthquake. We see bigger dots here in parts of Lancaster County and also in Berks County and in that region. So here's Berks County, here's Lancaster County, because that's another area where we have faults, and those areas of Pennsylvania are most prone to earthquakes. But if you notice, in the region of New Jersey we're talking about, so here's kind of the Lehigh Valley, so this little bump out right there is Bucks County. It's farther north across from the Lehigh Valley into Hunterdon County, where we had the earthquake today at around 10:30. This region is also prone to earthquakes. Every dot you see is an earthquake. Every dot that gets bigger is one that gets felt a lot more. And because this one was a bigger one, it got felt to more places. And Karen, by the way, to your point, and you brought this up, it was not far below the Earth's surface, which is why we felt the shaking so well. If it were deeper down, it would have been harder for us to feel. So that's a great point. You brought it up. That it was only a couple miles below the Earth's surface.
All right, 2 quick questions here.
Yes, I just want to ask you, since you have the map up, because Governor Phil Murphy, New Jersey governor, had just tweeted out saying that, announcing that we, of course, experienced a magnitude 4.7 earthquake, and he says the epicenter was near Reddington. in Hunterdon County. Is that near Lebanon, basically, then?
Yeah, it is. If we want to pull up our radar computer, I have it up on our radar computer. It's one of our multiple systems, and I have the live map of where the earthquake is. It's pretty much on the edge of Hunterdon County, right before you go into Somerset County in New Jersey, and that's right up the road from where we've been talking about. The thing is, when these happens, they don't happen in a downtown, so they give you a feel, and they still, as I zoom in, it's going to move it around, but it's actually in this portion of Hunterdon County. Zooming out, it has it on that scale right there, but it's up the road from where we're talking about, a couple miles away in that little part, that little northeast corner of Hunterdon County, New Jersey, across from the Lehigh Valley and Allentown.
Okay, thank you for showing us that and explaining. He also says they've activated their State Emergency Operations Center, and he's asking folks in New Jersey to not call 911 unless you have an actual emergency. If they're experiencing anything like we are here at the news station, our phone lines are tied. So if you are concerned, if you have questions, if you could just hold off on 911 or call like the information number instead, or non-emergency line. They're trying to make sure they can assess if there are any emergencies or any damage at all.
I want to get to the actual emergencies. All right, Drew, I'm going to hold my second question for you coming up in just a bit. I want to get out to Mike. Mike, were you near City Hall?
Well, I was on my way to Westchester, and then everything started shaking. So we came to City Hall because we heard that City Hall had been evacuated, and they were. Most of the employees were out standing around City Hall, but they just got the okay to go back in. Did anybody feel the earthquake?
I did.
Okay, where were you?
I was actually in the Social Security office trying to get my food stamps turned
Oh,
back
I've been
on.
in there.
Yeah, I was trying to get my food stamps turned back on, and I just felt a little shaking. I was like, oh my gosh, I was just shaking.
Did you think it was an earthquake?
I don't know. It was just
Because we don't have them very often.
It was uncertain, I know. It
Yeah.
could have been. It's a possibility.
We had one that I felt, this is years ago, over 10 years ago in Virginia. You probably weren't old enough
I wasn't,
to feel that.
probably.
Yeah.
That earthquake was crazy.
Yeah. Did you feel the quake?
Yeah, I felt it. I don't know what was going on. I was just wondering.
Where were you?
I was over there on the other side of the street.
Over by City Hall?
Yep, right here at Delaware City Hall, and I felt that earthquake just going.
Yeah.
Then I got on social media and I seen everybody talking
Oh,
about
on social media, it was everywhere.
Everywhere,
you know.
everywhere.
I got reports that people felt it up in Connecticut. In fact, it was Megyn Kelly let me know they felt it at her house. In Queens, Brooklyn, in Delaware. I mean, I'm sure y'all been talking about this, and certainly all over Pennsylvania and New Jersey. Did you feel it?
Yes.
Okay, hold on. What's your name?
Farman.
And what did it feel like?
Like just shaking, like everything. I know my country, like every month, like.
What's your country?
Pakistan.
Pakistan.
And I'm just feeling a little bit, and I'm calling home, and my wife, and it's too many, like too much.
Well, this is not. I mean, it's a sturdy car.
Yeah, but just like
it's still
yeah,
shook,
yeah.
right?
I'm just somebody pushing, like somebody shaking, like what is wrong? But
Yeah.
I'm looking like, I'm just.
But you're fine. Everything stayed on.
Yeah.
It stayed up. Okay, let's go down to the next food cart and see if they felt anything. Because I mean, I'm sure these carts were shaky. Certainly. What did you guys say it was? 4.8? Is that the magnitude? 4.8?
Yeah.
Do you guys feel the earthquake?
Yeah, we felt it.
Where were
yeah.
you?
We were in the City Hall, actually.
How was the rumbling?
It was pretty mild up on City Hall. We were on the 6th floor up there. It's a pretty sturdy building. So
And they told you to get out at one point?
yeah, I'm sorry, I'm not interested.
Okay, all right. But you felt it? Okay. Did you feel it? You didn't feel it at all? I tell you, we were in the vehicle heading for Westchester. We didn't feel a thing. We were joking around how the potholes would do more damage to us than an earthquake. So, but I'll send it back to you. I'll look for more people. Hi.
I appreciate it. Yeah, and if anyone left their buildings, if they were told to leave as well, there's about 55 earthquakes around the world each and every day, all very minor, but this one we felt today, has that been downgraded to 4.7?
It looks like it. I mean, that's what Governor Murphy stated it was based off his information, and it looks like we have that here. So, and you know, this is breaking news. We're still getting to learn more about this, but this is the tweet that he sent out just moments ago that I read earlier. Once again, he's asking folks to please do not call 911 unless you have an actual emergency. They want to keep their lines open, but we know a lot of people are curious and trying to figure out what just happened. But they have activated their State Emergency Operations Center. And Governor Josh Shapiro, Pennsylvania governor, also tweeted out saying that PEMA is also looking into this and has been activated, and they're trying to assess and see what the damage is, if any.
A lot of your comments are coming in. We're going to read them in just a second. We're actually going to go to Jen in the newsroom. I know Drew's also listening. Drew, I'm going to ask you the question about aftershocks. Not to say we're going to get one. 1, but could the aftershock be stronger than the initial earthquake? So we'll get to Drew with that answer. What are you hearing, Jen?
Okay, we know that at Temple University, students are also hearing it. A lot of moms are getting texts from their kids. Luckily, most of them are, "I'm okay, Mom," but we did feel it. Again, Garnet Valley has talked to the middle school kids and said, this is all some STEM lesson that you can use, real-life application. So this is my Facebook, and I said to people, did you feel it? So right here, Tracy says, felt it here in Doylestown. The whole house shook, sounded like a big gust of wind hit the house, and then the ground vibrated for 30 seconds. Norma, me, and I've never experienced an earthquake, but I knew it was one. I live outside the bases in New Jersey. Jill, I live in Broomall. At first it sounded like a flying jet over my house, but when it started to shake, I knew it wasn't. Lauren, I work across from Rivers Casino. My building was shaking. I froze and thought the building was collapsing. So crazy. Maple Shade, house is shaking. Claire says, had gone back to get in bed and felt my bed rocking and heard what I thought was a really big truck gone by. We are hearing a lot of people think that something happened outside of their home, helicopter, big truck, a car accident, something like this. Blackwood, New Jersey felt it. Ariel, New Jersey. Maria says, we felt it in Ridley. Whole house shook. My son texted me from Ridley Middle School saying he felt it too and everyone was okay. School just sent out a text saying the school is fine and thankfully no damage. Northeast Philadelphia, obviously Delco, Clifton Heights. My house vibrated. Jessica says it felt like an uneven load of laundry in the washer type of feeling. A lot of people are saying it felt very like a smooth rattle and roll, if there's any way to say it that way. One woman has said she didn't feel it. She has a little bit of FOMO. South Philadelphia, they felt it as well. So a lot of people having similar sensations. Southwest Philadelphia is checking in, Bethlehem, Malvern, Paoli, and Berwyn. So guys, a lot of people are saying they felt it. A lot of people are saying that it felt like something outside of their house. And just so you know, guys, moms and dads are getting texts from school district. So far, overwhelmingly, everyone's saying that everyone is okay. Just a little freaked out by the experience.
School districts, yeah.
It's something, when you have an experience like this, that you also, when people are drawn because they want to share. They want to check in, they want to share. I feel like I have a fourth grade mom group, I have the neighbor group, and it's like everyone would like, you want to also, you know, it's not commiserate, but like, did you have this thing? It's like, did you feel it too?
The school districts have done a wonderful job keeping in touch with the parents as well. We're going to read more of your comments coming up in just a bit. Of course, with any shaking, now starts the inspection, the instructional inspection of bridges, tracks, lines as well, and that's affecting transportation.
It certainly is. So we have a couple of announcements. Patco tweeted out that Patco service is suspended, and they said it's because of the earthquake in our area. Crews are inspecting the integrity of the line out of an abundance of caution. So once the inspection is complete, then they'll bring it back. They said no time frame now. Updates to follow, so we'll keep you updated on that. And then in New Jersey, for New Jersey Transit, there's also been an announcement from them as well, and they're not fully suspending, but they say they are working on delays, about 20-minute delays. Rail service system-wide is subject to up to 20-minute delays in both directions due to bridge inspections following an earlier earthquake. So not completely suspended, but they're moving a little slower because they want to make sure everything is moving just fine. And again, because this just happened, it hasn't even been a full hour yet, and it, you know, we haven't had any reports of damages yet, but you still want to see and test out everything and not just run business as usual, because this doesn't happen often here.
And we'll check in with, you know, obviously Amtrak, SEPTA, DelDOT, and all of those, you know, as well.
All right, I know Drew's also standing by. I understand we have Derek Pitts from the Franklin Institute. Derek, great to have you with us. Thanks so much for joining us. What can you tell us, get us up to speed, what we have experienced here over the past hour?
Right, so we had this really interesting geologic phenomenon happen, an earthquake at 4.8 magnitude over at Whitehouse Station in New Jersey. The depth of the earthquake was somewhere between 5 and 7 kilometers down, and it was felt really widely across the area. I have a friend who felt it as far north as Albany. As I looked at the USGS maps, it could be felt out in Buffalo as well. And this particular kind of earthquake is the result of the Earth's crust in this region just readjusting itself from geologic events from thousands to millions of years ago. I also recognize that this is the type of earthquake that's pretty typical for this region. We don't have them very often, but when we do have them, they sort of range about like this, smaller up to about this size. They typically aren't very damaging, although we always take precautions to make sure that the infrastructure is still working right, like you've heard reports from already. But hopefully a lot of people around the region just got to feel it so they could feel what an earthquake is like. Not dangerous, but just an opportunity to feel what it's like.
And since this, and I'm throwing this out there because we're getting tweets and people are trying to figure out, and we're not used to this, right? The last one was in 2011, and since we're talking to you, chief astronomer with the Franklin Institute, some people are wondering, oh my goodness, we have an eclipse on Monday. Could there be any correlation at all for why we're feeling something like this or why this could have happened? Clear that up for folks.
And connected to the opening of the demon portal on Monday? No, there's no connection here.
Okay.
There's absolutely no connection here. So, I mean, if you just think about it for a second, the sun and the moon are in the sky all the time. So if there was a connection, well, wouldn't this have happened already before? And it hasn't. So no connection.
Thank you for clearing that up. So I've got a number of tweets of folks already.
No portal opening up here. And to understand that, the video you were watching just a moment ago, and to clarify, Brian, that was the moment that the earthquake actually hit. You saw it there on Love Park camera. What is the frequency, if you can, Derek, on these earthquakes?
These kinds of earthquakes, okay, so first of all, there's always some like low-level background stuff going on, and typically, we don't feel the ones and the twos that happen on a fairly frequent basis. We don't feel that. When I say frequent, I mean, like once or twice a year. The fours, like this one, those are really widely felt. So we pay a lot more attention to those. Remember, the other smaller ones are hidden in the background noise of everything that goes on in a large urban area. The construction, the trucks, all of that sort of stuff. So we don't feel those and don't pay attention to them. Earthquakes like these happen once every few years, every 5 or 6, maybe every 10 years or so. And because it's a 4.8, it really stands out because it stands out separately from all the other background noise, as I said, construction and trucks. Those vibrations are much lower in frequency, and so we don't really pay attention.
Derek, do you think when we have an activity like this that this is the plates like mushing together, for an unscientific term, or sliding? I always thought of it, I learned back in grade school that they were sort of sliding against each other, and that's sort of that vibration as they give a little.
Yeah, so in that case, we're talking about the activity that happens between large tectonic plates. Think of this instead as a wrinkly crust in which, there's a couple of ways in which this is happening. Let's say you have something that's cooling, and as something is cooling, the surface wrinkles a little bit. That's one mechanism for something like this to happen. The Earth is still cooling from its formation, right? So that's happening. And then the other thing we have to remember is that this region of the North America also had a huge ice sheet on top of it just 10,000 years ago. So as that ice sheet melted away, the ground underneath has been lifting back up as that weight dissipates with the melting of the glacier. Now, the glacier's long been gone. Yes, we get that. But the Earth is still kind of readjusting its crust from having that huge weight of a sheet of ice more than a mile tall sitting on it just above this region.
A couple of final questions, and we'll let you go. I know it's hard to predict, but where are we with technology in predicting perhaps how these earthquakes happen, when they happen, and possible aftershocks?
So where we are with prediction is we can identify places where earthquakes are likely to occur. We can look at fault lines and see what kind of fault lines they are and have some idea of the kinds of earthquakes that might happen. But it's really very difficult to pinpoint exactly when. We're doing very much better with earthquakes along the San Andreas Fault because we can identify when stresses are building up that one could say might lead to an earthquake at some point in the future. But we cannot point to and say, we know an earthquake is going to happen at this location on this date at this time.
So to Thomas's point, do you expect that there'd be any aftershocks? Usually they're not as strong as this first one. They'd be like of a lesser amount that typically happens?
They can be equal to or lesser than. It's hard to say definitively, but for this kind of quake, I wouldn't expect that there would be aftershocks. But, we never know what the Earth's crust is going to do. So if we look back historically, you might say, in previous instances of quakes like this, in this region, there have not been aftershocks, or the aftershocks are really, really weak and not felt.
That's reassuring, I think, for a lot of people.
Thank you.
Derek Pitts, certainly do appreciate your time, Chief Astronomer at the Franklin Institute.
Yes, thank you, Derek.
For having me.
And once again, we want to remind people that video we've been showing is from earlier, around 10:23, when it happened. You can see just how much it was shaking. We're continuing to update you on when it comes to transportation and how that in transit, how it's going. SEPTA says they have no reported injuries or no reported damage just yet, and they are still operating on normal schedules, but they have enacted their standard operating procedures for post-earthquake inspections. So right now they're taking a look at the tunnels, bridges, power facilities, and other equipment. They've dispatched personnel, so you might see some more SEPTA personnel out there when you're traveling, but they'll update us if they find anything.
Talking about the tracks and the power lines as well. Let's head back out near City Hall. Mike, standing by, Mike.
Alex! Hold on just a second. Everybody has their own story. Where were you? What's your name?
CC
And where do you work?
at 16 JFK.
16 JFK, so that's pretty tall.
Yeah, I was on the 11th floor.
Yeah, what'd you feel?
When I was sitting, doing my work, typing, and then all of a sudden I just started to feel a wiggle. I'm like, wait, what is this? And then I'm like, oh, okay, I stopped. And then it's still like, I was still moving.
Did you think earthquake?
Yeah, I did. But it wasn't that strong, though, but you could still a little wiggle.
Okay.
Then all of a sudden I got a text from my brother and sister like, did you feel that earthquake?
I know, everybody's texting everybody else.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
All right.
Did you feel it?
I felt it at 13th and Market.
13th and Market. Well, we're pretty close to there now. What'd it feel like?
I felt like the building was going to fall for me.
Oh, really? How long did it go on?
About 15 seconds.
15 seconds or so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little alarming.
Yeah.
Oh, look at these.
I've always wanted to meet you.
You always wanted to meet me? Well, now we did. It took an earthquake to get us together. Mike. Aaron, good to see you.
Bobby.
I'm guessing you're visiting from the Bay Area.
Yes.
Duh. Are you here for WrestleMania?
Yes,
Yeah.
we are.
You were taking pictures under the love statue?
Yes, we were.
Do you have a lover here?
No, we're here with the family. Brotherly love.
Just a brotherly love. This is the city of brotherly love.
Yeah, right on.
And so, as they're taking the picture under, a love picture, the earth moved.
Yeah.
Did it move for you?
I felt it a little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
We felt it when we were coming out of our hotel just before we got over here.
Yeah, same
a little
thing.
disorientation, so nothing we ain't felt before. That was a little compared to what we're used to, though.
Well, you're used to earthquakes, certainly in Northern California. The worst earthquake I was ever in, I was in an audio booth at KPIX
Okay.
during the World Series.
Oh man,
That was a bad one.
World Series.
There you go.
Right now too.
It was, who was playing? It was Dodgers.
Giants and A's, no?
It's Giants and A's.
Yeah.
And there was an earthquake, I think, in the first inning.
I was super young, but
Yeah.
that was.
So this was kind of a wimpy one compared to what you guys have.
But right when I felt it, I was like, oh, that was a little earthquake. And then my brother told me like 15 minutes later that there was an earthquake. I was like, that seems right.
Get
So.
the text all over the place. Okay, I'll send it back to you.
All right, Mike, thank you.
A lot of siren
Kathy
activity,
Moore,
but I don't
Chief
think it's about the
Meteorologist, joining us on the phone. We'll check back in with Mike. Getting a lot of interesting questions and comments, Kathy. Good to have you with us. One person asking, could it have anything to do with all the rain that we've experienced this week?
You know what, Thomas? Sometimes people try to equate meteorological events and weather with earthquakes, and there's nothing scientifically that proves that, but it is interesting with certain types of weather events, even with hurricanes and tornadoes. It could be near the timing of an earthquake, but not necessarily related. It is interesting that this was felt in such a widespread area. I was driving to New York City at the time the quake hit and did not feel it, but my phone was blowing up from South Jersey, Morristown, friends in Cherry Hill, friends in Hoboken, even on Long Island. In New York City, people did feel it, and everyone's talking about it. Everyone's phone was buzzing with the alert. So that was kind of surreal walking through the streets of New York. But I have a map that I want to show you because I was never familiar with a fault in New Jersey, but we do have one. It's the Ramapo Fault, and it's in North Jersey, and there have been other quakes in Jersey with the epicenter in New Jersey, in Lincoln Park, in Jersey City, in West Freehold, in Clifton, Fairfield, and also in Morristown, that's in North Jersey. But you can see those magnitudes were 1.9, 1.6, 1.5, 2.7 was the strongest in August of 2015, and we didn't even talk about them. And it just goes to show how much stronger today's was at a 4.8. That's a big deal for us.
It certainly is 4.8. Going back to 2011, I know you remember we had the 5.8. That was further south in Virginia. I don't remember any aftershocks. Do you remember any following that 2011 earthquake?
No, I don't. I remember my children were little then, and we were at the pool, and everyone that was in the pool did not feel that, and everyone that was outside did. And that was scary. And that was, much farther away than this one. So I'm glad that, everyone I talked to is fine, but, everyone knew when the earth shook this morning that it definitely was an earthquake. I heard from our friend Chris Stock from Stock's Bakery in Northeast Philadelphia. She was at the bakery at the time, and they all felt it as well, and everybody knew. Thank goodness everybody's fine, but definitely a significant event this morning through the Philadelphia area. And if you look at the far-reaching real estate of this, it was felt in New England, it was felt in New York State, New York, down through Jersey, and also through Baltimore and Washington. So that is definitely a big deal.
All right, stick with us for a second, Kathy. I just was checking with Amtrak, and they are just saying as 11:05 that due to the earthquake, of course, that they've initiated their track inspection protocol, and the speed restrictions have been implemented throughout the Northeast, which is our corridor, the Northeast corridor, until all the inspections are complete. I think we'll see that with all of our rail lines that want to take those precautions.
And getting some initial pictures in as well from our viewers. No structural damage, but a lot of decks, a lot of things falling over, a lot of pictures down, a lot of glasses down. So keep sending in your pictures and videos, and we'll share that coming up in just a bit.
Did you guys feel it at the station?
Heck yeah.
Oh, we did, yeah.
Yeah, Jim, our news director, came down. We were in the middle of a live broadcast, the after show, and he said, did you feel that? We felt it on the 4th floor. I was going up from the 2nd to 3rd floor at the time, so I didn't feel it.
You know why? Because you're in the stairwell.
Yeah.
Which is such a, it's all about architecture, right? So it's like in the stairwell, that's going to be, to your point, one of the most stable places. It's so reinforced. And we were sort of out by the edge of the building in our newsroom meeting where you were coming over. And typically there's the subway that goes underneath of us. So on the Good Day studio downstairs, we can typically feel the subway, and it'll rumble, and we're like, one of our people brought up, Belinda.
Yeah, I was the only one in the staircase, so God was looking out for me.
Yes, he was.
You would have been the same one. That'd have been worse.
I'm going to stick to Thomas next time something's going down.
Kathy, we appreciate it. Safe travel. Certainly do appreciate your time and joining us.
Yeah, good luck, guys.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Definitely an historic event for us. Hopefully we won't see something like this anytime soon.
We'll get the T-shirts made. I survived the earthquake of April 5th.
Someone did tweet, people in California are probably so annoyed with us right now because we're all freaking out over this. But let's get back out to Mike Jarek. He's been talking to people and hearing their stories about, did you feel it?
You felt it?
Yes, I felt it. Me and my daughter I just had her in there on a day with mommy. And
she's looking up, but we're looking at City Hall.
Yes,
right
at
behind
City
Tom
Hall.
Here.
Yes.
Remind everybody who you are.
My name is Sister Talia Taylor. I am president of the City of Dreams Coalition, also chair of the social music movement here in Philly.
I thought I recognized you.
Yes, it's me,
so
Mike.
What floor were you on?
3rd.
3rd, and what'd you feel?
Actually, I seen stuff shaking and moving and falling.
Were you scared?
Yes,
I
had to call them on the phone like, what's going on?
Like, what the heck's going on?
Yeah, what's going on?
Now, they evacuated the building, right?
Yes.
And then now you can go back in.
Yes, I've got my lunch, I'm going back in. Gotta go back to work.
You could have gone home.
No, I love it. I love helping the people. That's why we're out here.
Back to work.
For the people. Yes, absolutely.
Good to see you. Now, did you guys say, Alex, Karen, Thomas, Patco is shut down? Is that right?
Yes,
the Patco line
is suspended. While
and then
they're
Amtrak's testing out their tracks, right?
Yeah, and Amtrak has speed restrictions.
Did you feel it?
Yes, I did.
Okay, where were you?
I was on the 6th floor.
Of City Hall?
Of City Hall, yeah.
What did it feel like for you?
The whole floor started shaking, and everybody's looking around, and I said to myself, I knew it was like an earthquake, but I wasn't sure. I thought it might have been the subway, but it shook for so long, I was like, no.
How long do you think?
About 15, 20 seconds.
And that's a long time for something to be
shaking. Yeah, the floor was shaking, and I'm like, uh-oh, this is not something regular here. But no, I hope it wasn't it. I was up too high.
What do you do for the city?
I work for the water department.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay. Good to see you.
All right, thank you, man.
Thank you.
Take care of yourself.
All right, I'll keep roaming around.
I appreciate it,
Everybody
Mike.
has a story to tell, though.
Yes,
They
they
really
do.
do.
And it's great, Mike, that you're out talking to people and getting their stories. You guys are also tweeting your stories. So we want to get to this video from a viewer where you can see their chandelier. They said they thought it was a helicopter. And if you listen, you can tell that they're watching the after show. Okay. Well,
And that's usually what the Aftershock sounds. To some, it's a bunch of noise. To others, it actually makes sense. But as you can see, the chandelier going. A lot of people
shaking.
reporting pictures falling, a little damage, slight damage on decks as well. But
I did get a tweet from someone in Brewery Town who said it's a new construction home, and they said that their power went out for about 10 minutes, and they didn't know. I mean, maybe because it's new construction or that kind of thing. But it was scary for them to feel that and then to not have power for a little bit. But it's since been restored. But so everyone has their own interesting experience, and I think we'll all be talking about where were you on April on April 5th.
keep sending in your comments exactly in videos as well. Drew, I want to get back to the question I asked you about 10 minutes ago. The initial 4.7 here. Any possible aftershocks? Could it be stronger than the initial earthquake? Not that we're saying we're going to get any.
So listen, it is possible, but it's very unlikely. That would be more of an issue out in the West Coast where they're more prone to earthquakes. And in other words, the ground is closer to having an earthquake. What happens is when we have this shaking, it goes up and down. In fact, we have some reports. I got it on our Barron computer right here of who felt it around the Northeast. Reports coming in from the United States Geological Survey as far north as Vermont and northern parts of New York and also near New Hampshire and as far south as Virginia. Now, when we have that kind of shaking like that, it can make other cracks in the rock kind of move a little bit, and that's what causes another earthquake. In our particular region, as you heard from Kathy Orr and Derek Pitts from the Franklin Institute, we're not prone to big earthquakes. So if it were to cause another earthquake, it would be on the smaller side. On this very computer, here's what I've been doing. I've been monitoring a station that measures earthquakes. This particular station that I want to bring up and kind of give you a feel and talk a little bit more about, it's just across the state line in Delaware, and this little spot right here monitors the earth shaking, and they caught the earthquake right there. You can see how it made such a big impact. Now, a little bit prior to that, you see a little blip here or there. This is showing at about every hour. So the hour prior to the earthquake, there was a tiny little bit of shaking, but that is common for this area. It could have been some pre-shock showing up. So what I'm talking about, the shaking in the hour prior to the earthquakes here. The earthquake itself is that big jump in the die. Essentially, a pen is hanging and it's recording on a piece of paper. And when the earth shakes, it records that. So we had that big spike, and then slowly the shaking stopped, which is why that got closer together and got smaller, and then it stopped. It lasted here for us at the station at about 30 seconds or so, and then it was done. Since then, as I continue to monitor this seismic site, there has been no more shaking, so there was no more reports. I'll refresh this to get the latest information because this is coming in real time from this site. So what I got to do right here is I just got to kind of get this and just slide this in to get the different picture. So a 4.8 magnitude earthquake happened in New Jersey. It was about 3 miles below the ground. That comes down to about 4.7 kilometers down below the ground. That's why some two numbers are similar to each other. So that is the latest from the reports we're getting in here in the Weather Center. We'll send it back over to you.
All right, Drew, thank you.
I also have a question. We're going to set it up. We're going to Jen, but I also saw a report that they might have been diverting some flights in the New York area, possibly to check on, like out of Newark, moving them to Lehigh. So I'm curious about that.
All right, we're checking all across the area, but first let's check in and see what's happening at Philadelphia International Airport. What are you hearing, Jen?
Okay, so first of all, with the airports, in Philadelphia, no ground stop yet, but Newark, LaGuardia, JFK, they're all on a ground stop. And of course, that's because they're trying to check everything, make sure that structurally things are okay, make sure that everyone's in the right place in terms of moving forward. So again, LaGuardia, Newark, JFK, ground stop. Philadelphia, not right now. A lot of people have asked, you know, all week we've been talking about WrestleMania. Tonight, it's at the Wells Fargo Center. Saturday and Sunday, it's at Lincoln Financial Field. I did call a top executive at Lincoln Financial Field. He tells me that a structural engineer is on the way. They want to make sure that everyone there is completely safe. Right now, they're not thinking anything's wrong. Remember, we have so much weather in this area. But again, I want to repeat that we do know that at Lincoln Financial Field, a structural engineer, possibly a team, on their way to make sure that everyone is safe. And you know, everyone keeps talking about where they were. Karen, you alluded to it earlier. And people are kind of sharing. First of all, we know that Lower Merion School District, they are reporting that everyone is safe, no damage, so they want the parents to know kids will be coming home on time, not early. In terms of like where you were, Thomas, this is no surprise. A lot of people were with you. This is Joanne. I did feel it. I was on the computer and watching Thomas on Fox 29. My room shook, and 1 minute later, Thomas had a puzzled look on his face, and then you guys announced the earthquake. So a lot of people happy that we are here for them. But again, Philadelphia Airport, no ground stop. Regionally, New York City area, yes, absolutely. And we do believe, guys, that this was felt as far south as Baltimore. I know a lot of people on social media are saying, my uncle felt it in Colorado. We've seen that a couple times. But we do think it is really just a northeast situation.
Well, I mean, just going back to 2011, down in Virginia, 5.8, we felt it up here and even further north. All right, we appreciate that update, Jen. Thank you. And the puzzle look on my face as usual. So
Stop.
if you're watching us on the Good Day After Show, let's head back outside. Hank, what are you hearing? What are you seeing?
It's funny, Mike came on over at the same time. A guy named Steve, who watches us all the time, was telling me the same news over at City Hall about it being evacuated. He said he saw Councilman Squilla, a couple of others out there. He said they were out there for like 10 minutes and then went back inside. But over here where I am, I had to tell people about it. Everybody, by the convention center is really in WrestleMania mode. Most of the people that I'm talking to are going in there. A couple of people heard about it. Only one that I spoke with felt it. There's a dude that plays the drum over by Reading Terminal Market named Red. I sat with him for about 5 minutes and talked with him about it. Again, he had heard about it, but he's so busy beating on his drums that he didn't feel it or see it. So it's different here when I take a break. I've got both phones fired up here, so I'm looking through it. There's an interesting feature on the U.S. Geological survey, Thomas. For anybody that's watching this and wants to get involved somehow, it's called Did You Feel It? If you go to the U.S. Geological survey, go to the Did You Feel It? You can go ahead and write down or tell them what it is you found out or what you felt, where you are, and who you are, and that helps them to be informed and build a bigger database for earthquakes in our particular area. We don't have a ton of information, as you guys have told us so many different times. It just does not happen around here. I had one guy, Steve, over by Reading Terminal Market, tell me, Hank, if this had happened in California, they wouldn't even be talking about it. They wouldn't even discuss it. But here where we are, any kind of a tremor like that, let alone an earthquake, is certainly cause for conversation and a whole lot more.
That it is. Seems like business as usual. Shortly after the earthquake, right around 10:20, some businesses actually let their workers go home early because the nerves are rattled. Are you seeing those workers leaving on the streets, or what are you seeing once again?
No. It looks like any other day, and it's conversational. No one's leaving work. Why? There's no danger. I mean, like, there's what we can talk about. There are tremors. There is what happened. Sure. But as more time goes away from those tremors, what are we pushing in 45 minutes now? People aren't that concerned about it. They haven't had an earthquake. A lot of people talking about 10 years since the last one, the one that kind of rocked Baltimore. But no one out here is concerned about it, and certainly no one's leaving work or standing outside. As a matter of fact, I'm hard-pressed to find somebody that even knows about it. And I've talked to 24 people.
Initially, though, the comments, and just looking at some of the comments, I mean, they're talking about their family members who were in tears. I mean, it can be unnerving going through
I think for so many people, I think my mom was really, really scared because you don't know what it is. So then you're always imagining the worst case scenario. You're imagining everything that goes wrong that could be happening, things crashing, things happening. So I think it's that relief. Thanks, Hank. I think it's the relief that's why we're all talking. That's why we do go to Twitter. That's why we turn on the TV to be like, oh, okay, collective sigh, because it does get your
and we're not used to it. We're not used to it. I mean, I think I was a bit scared because I was like, their meeting stopped because we were like, whoa, you feel, what's going on? You feel that? And then we were discussing, well, could it be this? Could it be that? And one of our coworkers, Relinda's, was like, no, I think that's an earthquake. And we were like, no, really?
Yeah, we were in the middle of the Good Day After Show. I was going to reveal what your wrestling names were. That was the theme of the show. And then Jim...
Can I change mine to Rumble?
Yeah, earthquake something, right? It might be more appropriate. But Jim, our news director, came down, and first I thought the show was canceled. I was like, wow, it was really... But he said, did you feel that on the 4th floor? The whole building shook, and here we go. It has been confirmed, a 4.8 magnitude earthquake centered just north of Lebanon, New Jersey. Once again, if you're just joining us, Patco NJ Transit, right now they're just inspecting the bridges, the tracks, the power lines, so there will be slight delays throughout the morning here in the late afternoon.
And Patco hasn't, I mean, they were suspended indefinitely. They hadn't said that they've resumed service yet, but New Jersey Transit, they're working on a 20-minute delay. So we'll keep checking to get more updates.
But all the governors, let's take you, I want to show you the moment. This is from Lincoln Financial Field, the moment that the earthquake hit shortly after 10:20 this morning. I know we saw the camera from Love Park, and that was really shaking. I don't know if this is more of a stable camera, but yeah, you really can't see
I think it's harder because it's
here
wider.
it goes. I think it's about to start. Oh, no, it's a little bit, yeah, barely. You can barely notice it. Oh, there it goes.
Or you're seeing the slight shake. So that was at about 10:22 this morning with a 4.8 magnitude earthquake. We're also checking across the region. All the governors releasing statements from New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and New York. They're assessing, going around the state. The crews are assessing the different bridges and tracks as well. So as soon as we get additional word from any of the Twitter accounts, from the governors, our local township officials, we'll pass it along to you.
I got one. My township just sent out an emergency message, which they do whenever there's, something. They're being like, you may have felt this earthquake. They're not reporting any damage. So I think that's interesting. You may get those phone calls, the automated robocalls that you get, but where a person is physically, they send out a message that they just recorded moments ago, saying that everything was, fine in our township, which was in Montgomery County
And
Township.
I think it's so important for them to do that because a lot of people initially they go right to 911. They don't know what it is, and their 911 dispatchers are saying, please hold your phone calls unless it's an actual emergency, because they're just getting a ton of phone calls. They need to weed through what is an actual emergency.
And so they've been putting out those statements. So what a day, right? It's been so interesting as we kind of assess and figure out what's going on. Of course, also the WrestleMania folks in town, 200,000 people. Welcome to Philly.
They run the energy. They run the earth shook when they came to town.
Of WrestleMania, right?
Yeah, right. Ready to rumble. We didn't mean literally.
You're right. You're in for a treat, apparently.
All right, let's get back outside. Mike, what are you seeing?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. Well, we were just talking about, the folks that brought WrestleMania here said they were going to shake things up, right? Well, they did. An earthquake. Oh my God. So where do you go to school?
Moodier's.
And where's that?
There, West Philly.
And you felt it in the classroom?
Yeah.
How bad was it?
It was bad. Like, I felt it. It woke me out of my sleep.
Hold on a second. What?
It was bad, but like, it was hard to feel because we looked up and we just thought it was like classroom shaking, but it was scary because everybody thought it was the earthquake, so we ran and hid under the desk.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
I'm an OG, so it was never that scary.
Oh, listen to her. She's an OG. I was telling a story about a friend of mine sent me some pictures. He lives in Pittman, New Jersey, and he just renovated his home.
Right.
Earthquake hits. He looks up, and there's like a 30-foot crack in the ceiling that he had just renovated. So that's the only damage I've heard. Thank God there hasn't been anybody reports of anybody hurt or too much damage, stuff like that. People are just sharing their stories now of where were you. At first I thought this was a classic, the fire department called to get a cat out of a tree, but these are two separate issues going on here. They're putting up lights for some reason. Let me see if I can talk to these firefighters here.
Yeah.
There's nobody in there.
Now they might probably be checking.
I just wonder if they're getting calls. Yeah, probably alarm going off in this, the Ritz-Carlton, high rise. Hey, how are you? Yeah, they all went into the, whatever they call this. Alex, you know the name of this place. Ritz Residencies?
The residences, yeah. Well, I tell you, Mike, just being downtown in the office buildings, if you've ever, if you work there, if you've ever worked downtown.
I did? Yeah. Do you have a lot of reports of people feeling the earthquake?
I have. People, calling my phone.
No damage or anything?
No damage.
Not yet? Okay, good to see you. So, just people with stories to tell. Thank goodness.
Minor stories, which is always good. But to finish my point, Mike, we'll check back in with you coming up in just a little bit. See a lot of emergency personnel out there, may certainly be unrelated, but just the office, the glass panes in some of the offices, with the light, even with the slightest shift of the buildings, they shatter. And they replace a number of those. So it'd be interesting to see how many calls they're going to get in with some of the glass panes in the office buildings, even shifting just a little bit, which is a great point about structural. When we talk about a 4.8 magnitude earthquake, what type of structural damage could we see? I want to bring in Dr. Avi Drexel, professor at Drexel Structural Engineering. So great to have you with us, joining us this morning. What type of damage could we see here with the 4.8?
Yeah, 4.8 is a light earthquake, so I would expect, light damage, maybe to cladding and and shaking of internal, equipment and things falling off the shelves. So that's what I would expect for a 4.8 earthquake. But we, even in the Northeast, we do design for earthquake. In fact, I just finished a course last quarter at Drexel where I taught my students how to design for earthquakes. And so whether you're in the Northeast or you are in California in earthquake zone or you're in Japan, we teach our students how to design for earthquake. And buildings in the Northeast, structures, bridges are designed as well for earthquakes.
Well, and it's one of those, it's fascinating how because all buildings, when they're very tall, they would sway and you would feel nauseous if you were on the upper floors of a building. So you're designing for obviously structural integrity, but so people don't feel the sway even just in a normal with like the winds and just the normal course of life in action. What do they do? Some buildings, I think there's one that has like water in it to compensate for it. What are we doing when we're designing buildings here so that we don't really even feel it in a high office building?
Well, if it's a tall building, tall enough building, you will use what they call tuned mass dampers. That's what you were referring to when you said they'll put water, or it could be oil as well, or some form of liquid that will sway opposite to the direction that the building wants to go, and therefore dampen the movement of the building. So that is done frequently for very tall buildings. For mid-rise buildings, you typically will not feel nauseous, even in wind situations or earthquake situations, because the code also limits the lateral sway or movement that the building can undergo. So that means we'll stiffen up the materials, the detailing of the connections, the detailing of the materials, and all of that comes into play in trying to mitigate that.
Okay. And when it comes to whether you're in a building or whether you're in your home, a lot of people are saying, I didn't know what to do. I ran outside. I didn't know where I could be that was safe. In your opinion, where would be a safe place to stand or wait until it subsides?
I mean, if I had an earthquake happening in my building, I'll run out of the building.
There you go.
I'll run out of the building if I can and be outside. But again, this is a light earthquake, thankfully, and so I don't expect that any major damage would have occurred.
Okay.
Unless you have a very old building that has reinforced masonry walls from way back that did not consider earthquake. Remember, the heavier the building is, the more it's going to be affected by earthquake.
And more so than just the buildings we're speaking of here. We had mentioned PATCO NJ Transit. They're out there looking at the area bridges and tracks as well. Just over the years, I know the rain, the saturation of the grounds had nothing to do with the earthquake, but even just the wet grounds, could that play a factor with shifting of the bridges or power lines or tracks?
I don't know about the rains themselves, because those are all factored in when we design for earthquake, the type of soil that's in that area. So I'm not certain that would impact the structure as a result of the rains, because it's normal. But we do consider soil. Like I told somebody else, I said, you could be in the East Coast because your soil is so bad, it could be like you are in the West Coast when you design for earthquake. That means that the forces you're going to design for might be quite high and the requirements might be quite stringent, as though you were living in California, depending on the type of soil that you have. So all of that, we do consider that when we design at least modern structures.
Doctor, thank you so much.
We appreciate your insight, Dr. Abe, joining us, Professor of Structural Engineering from Drexel.
And now we have the governor of New York, Governor Hochul, speaking now.
Explain the difference, but that's why we're going to continue to take this very seriously and make sure that we continue to update all New Yorkers. So Catherine Garcia, our head of state operations, you'll hear from first, and then Commissioner Jackie Bray, head of Homeland Security.
Thank you. Thank you, Governor. I want to reiterate that we have no reports of damage at this time. And that immediately all of the infrastructure agencies activated their policies and procedures to deal with this, because while highly unusual in the state of New York, we do actually have fault lines. This was significantly bigger than ones that are typically felt in the state of New York or occur and actually are not felt. That is because earthquakes happen on a logarithmic scale, which means that a 3.0 is 10 times worse than a 2.0. So a 4.0 is 10 times easier than a 5.0. So every one of those makes a significant difference in what you will experience and what the damage could be. In addition, we are also tracking whether or not there's any increase in hospitalizations, as well as whether or not there's any increase in vehicle accidents that has not been reported at this time. Thank you.
Commissioner Bray?
Not much to add about the governor and Director Garcia covered it. I would say we did see an overloading of cell circuits in the New York City area immediately after the event. We've been in touch with AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile. Their networks are clear now and back up and working, and we have opened the state's Emergency Operations Center. We're at a level 3 to monitor impacts and reports that come in. We've seen one gas leak in Rockland County, but other than that, there don't seem yet to be major infrastructure impacts, but we are in touch with the counties. We'll stay in touch with the counties all day. Thank you.
All right, let's do some on-topic questions. Governor, has there been any contact with the Indian Point facility in Westchester and any concerns there?
That's part of our analysis of all critically important infrastructure. So yes, the communication has gone out, correct?
Yeah, we're in constant touch with both that facility and our other facilities. There's no damage reported at Indian Point. We wouldn't expect damage at this time, and we're in touch with Westchester, and we'll stay in touch with Westchester.
Governor, can you just say what you were doing at the time that it hit, and what you felt and what was going on?
No surprise to anybody here in the Capitol. I was meeting with my senior team, talking about their late night working on the budget, and we were talking about how we're going to move the budget forward today. So literally sat in the room next door. People felt different degrees of movement in the room, surprising, and all of a sudden everybody's cell phones start lighting up and describing what it was. So we were literally right here working on the budget and getting a budget done that includes a once-in-a-lifetime housing package may be the only seismic event we expected this week. So this was rather unanticipated. You cannot plan for this. There's no early warnings. There's no weather service that can tell you an earthquake is imminent, and that's why everybody was caught off guard. But fortunately, here in the state of New York, we are masters of disasters. We know how to handle this from unexpected snowstorm just a couple days ago. Everybody's anticipating massive crowds for another celestial event on Monday with the total eclipse pathway going through large parts of our state. So my point is we're always ready. We have planning in place for all of our teams activate instantaneously, and I feel very comfortable about that. But again, these are emerging situations. It could be over, but also there could be another effect, and we have to be prepared for that and warn New Yorkers to be particularly vigilant in the days following an original earthquake.
Governor, I assume your team has analyzed the aftershock forecast. What do they show? What should we anticipate?
Commissioner Bray, the former head of one of the heads of the National Weather Service. Is this something you can predict?
No, we don't predict earthquakes. We don't predict. The aftershocks aren't predictable, and so obviously we'll monitor USGS's information, but we're not looking at, these aren't forecastable events.
Governor, one more on the ground stop at JFK and the airports. Is there a timeline for how that gets?
We just spoke to them. Do they have a timeline on that? Okay, on the ground stop.
We don't have a timeline yet. What they're doing is really confirming that the air traffic control towers are safe to operate in. So as soon as we know, we'll make sure that that's public information.
Which airports were those again? I'm sorry.
JFK and Newark.
Not LaGuardia?
Not LaGuardia.
Why not LaGuardia?
Why not LaGuardia? Because they've redone their, they have a more recent, I'll let Catherine explain.
We're getting more information, but we suspect it is because they were renovated more recently and meet higher standards.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, thank you very much, everybody. Appreciate it.
Once again, we heard from New York Governor Kathy Hochul right there, along with the federal agencies updating at least on the situation in New York. And the reason being is because the earthquake happened North Jersey, closer to New York. She's in constant communications with New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy. You had mentioned, or you had heard just a moment ago, regarding the airports in New York. LaGuardia Airport, they did not have any type of ground stoppage. They are operating at this time. So is Newark and JFK as well. They had a brief ground stoppage. All right, I'm just trying to gather my thoughts here. They had a brief ground stoppage here about 20 minutes ago to assess the situation, but right now they are operating. They have arrivals and departures on time.
And they're much closer to where the earthquake in the first place.
And that's
Obviously,
the reason
Newark
why they
is
did
much,
the
much
initial
closer.
ground
Of course,
stoppage
it makes
to
perfect
assess the
sense. And we got
situation.
some reports that some planes might have gone to Lehigh Valley. They'll probably be back and diverted back to Newark at this point.
And so this is Skyfox that it's up, and because it's like we've been mentioning, when it comes to transit, Patco, New Jersey Transit, Amtrak, they're all, inspecting the railways and making sure the bridges are okay. And so some are operating on a delay. Patco fully suspended. So we'll keep you updated on that. But as you can see, they are checking and inspecting just to make sure everything is running fine. Okay, so now we've been talking about how this earthquake is centered in Lebanon, New Jersey. Well, now we have the mayor of Lebanon is on the phone with us. Good afternoon.
Hi, how you doing?
Well, how are you doing is the question. I mean, everyone's talking about Lebanon. How are things there?
It's funny. I'm just sitting in Borough Hall with the administrator and the deputy clerk, and we're still all a little shaken up, even though it's it's been a couple hours now. It's just such a crazy experience. I was working from my home office, and just felt a shake like I've never felt before. And I was having some work done outside. I rushed outside, and I thought that the guys had done something, and they were just as shaken up as me.
Yeah, Mayor, a lot of people didn't know initially, thought maybe a helicopter or a heavy truck passing by. I know here in Philadelphia, we felt the initial 4.8, but closer to the epicenter where you are, did you feel any aftershocks?
I haven't felt any aftershocks yet myself. I haven't heard of anything. But, in my own personal house, like I said, there was a lot of shaking and things knocked off the shelves and, pictures come off the wall. So it definitely was a pretty good shake.
Do you have any reports of any damage just yet?
We don't now. We have the fire department going street by street, checking things out. The state police have just pulled into the lot. So everybody's out just checking, and we're just fielding a lot of phone calls from residents that were shaken up.
Mayor, we often talk about preparing. I know this is something that you certainly can't predict, but once you have an earthquake, a 4.8 earthquake, what are the next steps? How do you deploy crews, and where do you go?
Yeah, exactly. We're going through that right now. I mean, we're pretty lucky, even though we're a small town out in Hunterdon County. We have a pretty good OEM group that's prepares for this all the time. So it's like you said, the preparation, I think, is the key. So, this
Mayor,
is where
can you tell us a little bit about Lebanon for some of us folks that haven't had the pleasure of getting to visit the hamlet there? What's your town like? You got put on the map today by an earthquake, so.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, no, it's like I said, it's a very small community in Hunterdon County. It's only about 1,600 residents. It's actually just under 100 years old. It's relatively, a young town, relatively speaking, for some of the other towns out here in New Jersey. But, just a really close-knit community. Like I said, that's why everybody feels comfortable calling and stopping into Borough Hall just to see what's going on.
You have a whole lot of news crews that'll be visiting you today as well, I can imagine, as well. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for taking the time to talk to us. I imagine it's going to be a very busy day for you, Mayor.
Sure.
All right,
all right, I appreciate it.
We appreciate your time certainly this morning as well. I know you're going to be very, very busy. Let's check in real quick with Drew.
So you heard it firsthand right there from the mayor. Interesting that he felt it a little more severe. You heard his reports about a little bit of tiny damage, and that makes sense because that was the epicenter. That's where the shaking was most pronounced. And what's interesting about our area, and you've heard from some of our experts just a short time ago, what kind of soil you have makes a big difference. If you have soil that's more like you get as you head down to the Jersey Shore, it's a little bit more sandy, you're actually going to feel the shaking a bit more. So what's below your feet makes a difference in how much your building or your home will shake. That is a look just to the north Lebanon in New Jersey. This is in Hunterdon County where the earthquake happened. Lebanon's the closest community to the actual spot, and Epicenter is just the name for where that earthquake happened below the Earth's surface. Below the Earth's surface, by the way, it's about 3 miles down. That's where this earthquake originated. Us here in the north, because some of these cracks in the rock that cause these earthquakes are pretty close up to the ground, that's why a lot of times it doesn't travel super far away. So folks, out, say, from New England down to Virginia, that's about it who felt it. So that's a look at what's happening and some of the latest information coming to the Weather Center.
Roger, thank you.
So we've been checking in. We have folks in different parts of the area. We want to get out to Ellen because we're talking about the reaction in schools that we've been seeing. So Ellen, you're in the Philadelphia area. What have you heard? Have you been asking folks if they felt it?
Yeah, guys, I'm telling you, imagine being a child in an elementary school. Well, we just came from Vare, Washington Elementary School here in South Philly. And let me tell you, we talked to parents, teachers, the dean of students, even a child, and they said they had no idea, as you can imagine, what was going on. And they were scared. They had no idea that they never expected a 4.7 magnitude earthquake to hit this area. And especially on the second and third floor, that's where everything really was shaking. And they said, the kids had no idea. They were really nervous, had no idea. They were asking the teachers, what's going on? So some of the students, some of the older students, it's a K through 8 school, they were taking it as an active shooter situation, and they actually got under the desk. Not all the kids, but some of the older kids. And then when they figured out it was not an active shooter, thank goodness, they realized it was an earthquake. Then they tried to make it fun. They tried to joke about it, tried to reassure all the kids. And so the teacher said that's what they tried to do. And then after we talked to some of those parents, another principal came just out of nowhere. She came over to us from another school, their charter school, and she said they tried to make it a real teaching moment. She said they then turned it into a lesson about earthquakes. So everybody is trying to handle it in their own way, but she said they were very nervous, very scared. Nobody really knew what was going on. But the one little girl, a little kindergartner, told me, she said, I didn't feel a thing. I was on the first floor. She said, what does an earthquake feel like? She was having a little exchange with her grandmom. So again, everyone's just really trying to process it. They're trying to figure out what happened, but the kids are really taking it in stride. But it was very scary, as you can imagine, during that time. They said it happened about 2 minutes. They felt it shake at Vare Elementary, and the kids were just freaking out is the word that they were all using. But again, everybody's safe, and that's what's most important, as you all know. Back to you.
Absolutely. Ellen, thank you.
And once again, the school district's doing such a great job just communicating with parents. We just want to update you. All of the airports out of New York are operating on time, on schedule here. There was a ground stoppage earlier at 2 of the airports, with the exception of LaGuardia and some of the regional airports. In Patco as well, train service between all of the NJ New Jersey stations has resumed, and this was out of a precaution. They did bridge and track inspections earlier, so there was about a 20-minute delay, but right now Patco and NJ Transit on schedule.
Okay, and so, go ahead.
Once again, if you're just joining us, there was a 4.8 earthquake that struck just north of Lebanon, New Jersey. It was about 10:20 this morning. We talk about the school districts. Let's get out to it. This is the Garnet Valley School District. I know you did a great job as well. Parents were calling in. The students were unnerved as well. What can you tell us about that moment when the earthquake struck? Good morning.
Good morning. How's everybody? So it's been kind of a crazy week anyway, with all the rain and getting ready for the eclipse. So when everybody felt the rumble, it definitely got our attention, but we're all safe and have something fun to talk about today.
So what exactly did you feel there? And then I'm going to have another question about the eclipse coming up, because I'm fascinated by that. But what exactly did you feel personally?
So personally, I was at one of our elementary schools on the ground floor, and I didn't feel much of anything. It was our middle school that really felt it the most, especially on their second floor. So our middle school principal reached out to me and said, hey, are you getting phone calls? And I said, about what? And she said, we just had an earthquake. I said, we have not. Yeah, we just had an earthquake. So I went immediately to my phone, and sure enough, I saw that we had like a 4.8. So then both of us thought it would be a good idea to just send something out to the community to make sure that all the parents knew that we were safe.
Yeah, I know you have scenarios for just about every situation. What is the protocol for an earthquake?
Well, obviously we don't experience too many of them, so really They happen so quickly and without notice. We just call all of our schools, make sure that everybody's safe, make sure structurally everything is, maintained its integrity, and then we move on with our day. And, one of the things that we have to recognize, schools are like society in general. So you have some people that are a little nervous, and it's always good to reassure those people and make everyone aware that we're all safe and nothing to worry about.
And communication is so important. I know the parents really appreciate you sending out that message or the voice alert to them. My question also is, I'm just really curious because we have obviously this big eclipse coverage that we're going to be doing on Monday. What's your district's plan? Are you guys going to be dismissing early or late, or just not doing anything different with the kids getting out during the eclipse itself?
Not really anything different with dismissals. Our parents, if they want to put in an early dismissal for their child or excuse their child from school, that's certainly allowed. But we did provide eclipse glasses for every student and our faculty and staff as well. With the timing of the eclipse, most of our students will be either getting on the bus or on their way home anyway. So we are taking some time over the next few days to obviously educate our students on an eclipse, but also on how to safely view the eclipse. And the glasses we have are approved, and we talk about not looking directly into the sky unless you have your glasses on and those kinds of things.
Did you cancel sports?
We did at the middle school level, and we delayed the start of our athletic contests at the high school level until around 4:30.
Yeah, because I just think it's so hard for kids when you're like, well, don't look up. Like, of course you're going to look up. Ignore that big astronomical event happening in the sky.
It's certainly going to be a big event on Monday. But getting back to the events of the day, you talked about business as usual, getting along with the school day. Have you had any parents show up wanting to maybe take their child because of their nerves?
No. Our parents are great and very, very understanding. And really, like I said in our communication, everybody just has something fun to talk about today.
Yeah, that they do.
What I also said, what a great month to be a science teacher with the eclipse, the earthquake, all the rain. So it's interesting in our schools right now.
Well, Dr. Bertrando, we always appreciate you. You're always so helpful, and it's just nice to have, all the transparency, and so we know what's going on in our schools. Thanks you so much for spending the time.
Let you get back to your day now. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right, back to the Weather Center, Drew.
So here's something that just popped up on our weather graphics. They're automatic, so they get some of the latest information. It just popped up here on our weather graphic of a magnitude 2.0 earthquake in the same area. I wouldn't report yet that it happened, and I'll tell you why. We want to see it come down from the USGS before we would say that, but our graphic system is one of the first places to get info. So, for example, when we have a severe thunderstorm warning, it comes to our graphic systems first, then the reports come out. So this little red dot has just popped up when we were talking to Dr. Bertrando just a moment ago. And so this is something I'm watching. I just pulled up a seismograph that's nearby, and just a couple minutes ago, there was a little bit of shaking there. I'm still keeping an eye on USGS. This is United States Geological Survey, to see if they reported any new earthquakes. Until they report it, this is unconfirmed. So we're going to keep an eye on USGS for a potential aftershock that may have just happened of a much lower magnitude. At 2.0, you would really just feel the shaking right around that general area in Hunterdon County to kind of give you a feel of the scale we felt. We saw a little bit of minor damage from that one photo that we had a little bit earlier, and you start getting that when you start getting higher magnitude, like the 4.8 we had. When you start getting on the lower end of, say, a 2 or 2.5, it's really just shaking. And less than that, you don't even notice it. You don't even know this is shaking. In that area of Hunterdon County, this is a map from last month. There actually was an earthquake at 2.2, but you didn't hear about it because 2.2, unless you felt a little shake around your home in that community, in that area, you wouldn't have even noticed. Once these different shaking amounts get greater, and that's indicated by a higher magnitude, so as we get into, say, a 3, a 4, or 5, that's when folks start feeling it in more places around the country. So I'm just going to refresh here of the USGS. These are the folks that it's an entity of our government that monitor things. It's the equivalent of like a National Weather Service when it comes to earthquakes. And as of now, they haven't reported any aftershocks. We're going to keep an eye on there for any updated info. In the meantime, we're talking about that earthquake that happened just in the very northeastern tip of Hunterdon County, and it's just right across from the Lehigh Valley, if you're not familiar with that area. And it's north of the community of Lebanon. So the actual epicenter, the spot where the shaking originated, it's north of the community, but the community is the closest location that folks would know, so that's why it's labeled, that is, as Lebanon. A couple other things of note that's pretty interesting is we actually have faults in this area. Faults cause earthquakes. Take a look at that map right there. Actually, let's swing it over to our bearing computer and get a better look at it. So what you're seeing there is a long crack in the rocks extending from Pennsylvania and into New Jersey. You see that yellow right there? That is the fault where we have shaking, so it's not uncommon to see earthquakes there. This map shows you that we get earthquakes in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, just oftentimes they're of a low magnitude. So that's a check of the latest information coming into the Weather Center. I'm going to keep an eye out to see if that aftershock is indeed confirmed.
All right, Drew, as soon as you do, give us word. I want to head back outside. Mike is downtown near City Hall. What are you seeing, Mike?
Well, we just saw a guy get loaded in an ambulance. He looked over at me and waved, said he was okay, but we shook up.
Yeah, definitely.
During that quake, it kind of upset him to the point he felt like he needed to go to the hospital.
Exactly.
Good to see you.
It's good to see you. Hi.
Remind everybody who you are.
Jared Golston with the mayor's office here. Excited to create a cleaner, greener, safer Philadelphia with economic opportunities for all.
Getting that plug in. What floor were you on?
We were on the first floor, so I felt it a lot. So we were in the mayor's suite. We felt the floor move. My mother called immediately, and we heard something over the loudspeaker say, "Nobody move, no one leave, you know, stay where you are."
So everybody moved and ran out of the building.
No, but they did the protocols that they were supposed to, and everyone was safe inside of City Hall. Again, just excited to be there. The mayor's okay, everyone's good.
Awesome. But the mayor was in there?
We're unclear exactly where she was, but her whole office and her support team was absolutely okay.
Everybody's okay.
Yep.
And the building was evacuated for a little while, but everybody is back in there now.
That's exactly right. Nothing fell. We didn't see anything because this is a full concrete building, City Hall.
Yeah.
Excited to be here in historic Philadelphia, so we were good.
Good to see you, man.
It's so great to see you.
I'm glad you're all right.
I'm such a huge fan.
Thank you. Come on the show anytime.
I appreciate that. Okay, y'all take care.
Yeah. And again, the guy that they loaded into the ambulance, he gave me the old thumbs up, you know, I'm okay. Just shook up. Maybe it was his first earthquake. For a lot of us, it was a first, I'm sure. Okay, guys.
Yeah, just real quick on a personal level, Mike, I know you're still talking to a number of people that are coming up to you out there, but you've traveled all across the country. You lived in California, New York. What was your first experience like with an earthquake? I was out in California. I experienced a number of them.
I went through two really heavy earthquakes when I lived in California. One was called the Landers quake. The other was Northridge quake.
Yeah.
When I-10 collapsed, remember that?
Yep.
And my apartment was everything on this side of the apartment went to the other side of the apartment, and vice versa. It was a Sunday morning, and I sleep in the nude. So the whole apartment's shaking. Oh my God, I got to get out of here. So I found some pants to put on, ran out into the courtyard, which you apparently are not supposed to do. But I just felt like I had to get out.
Yeah, and it's really hard to describe to people, right, Mike? Because it's more than just the shaking. It's a rolling of the building.
I've been through that one in San Francisco that was really horrible in 1989.
All those highways collapsed?
I was working at our TV station. Yeah, I-80 collapsed and a lot of people died. The marina caught on fire. It was horrible. That was a real, it went on 30 seconds. You're going back and forth, back and forth. A lot of times when I had earthquake experience in Southern California, it was like somebody took a big fist and punched it against your house. So it would be a jolt, and then that was it. Those weren't so bad. It was one that just kept on going for 30 seconds. Oh my God, this is it. The house is coming down. And then it stops. But the earthquakes, I think, are the scariest things. You can see a tornado coming.
Sure.
You know a hurricane's coming. An earthquake, you saw today how quickly it happened. We're walking around, earthquake. So it's one of the scariest Mother Nature things.
We're hearing all the stories coming in, Mike. We appreciate it. A lot of people driving, a lot of people at work, a lot of people at home. Certainly share your comments as well on social media. Mike's still asking people if they felt it. A lot did. Others who are working did not feel it. I want to get to Dr. Nick Devantis at a Temple Associate Department of Earth and Sciences. Great to have you with us this afternoon. If you can, take us back, because I know a lot of people are asking that question. What exactly happened? We know it was an earthquake, but what happened with the grounds at 10:20?
So my experience of the event was I was in a classroom on the second floor of Bury Hall at Temple University, and it started shaking. In that space, it actually felt like an unusually heavy truck, or you might feel like for construction, but it went on and built a little bit and went on longer than you would expect for that. And of course, that's one of the important things about earthquakes is both how strongly it shakes and how long it shakes. That has a big effect on the outcomes of an earthquake.
So what do you do in an earthquake? Like what do you, like, we don't know. I mean, do you run outside? Do you go to a fortified section of a building, like a stairwell? Like, what are you supposed to do?
So it really depends on the situation you're in. The first thing is put on shoes if you don't have shoes on. The biggest hazard with an earthquake is falling objects. So you need to assess whether or not the building that you're in is going to be strong. And if you can, it is quite reasonable to go outside, but you need to be able to go someplace that is far away from tall things that might fall down. So in other words, if you're on a building, you might want to go out into a park. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, holding in place is not a bad strategy until the shaking stops. And then good practice is to assess, how strong the earthquake was and whether or not there was damage to the building, and then make a decision about exiting the building or not.
And certainly not to put you on the spot, is this, I understand this is the strongest earthquake in New Jersey since 1973, is that correct? Do you know?
I don't know the exact answer to when the last earthquake of that magnitude was, although I can say that earthquakes of that magnitude are not uncommon. We expect them geologically as long as we look over longest periods of time. It's just that the times tend to be a little bit longer than we're used to in a human time scale.
Doctor, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. It's a great time to be teaching earth and environmental science right now with everything that's been going on. Thanks for your time.
Certainly do appreciate it. Let's head back up to New York. The mayor of New York spoke just a moment ago. We're hearing also from government agencies. Let's listen in.
Call 311. That is the best place to refer those needs. If you have a life safety issue, please use and call 911 immediately, but preserve 911 for those life safety events. The team acted immediately. We convened our emergency response teams and issued guidance to the public. The likelihood of aftershocks remain low, but we do remain vigilant, and we ask all New Yorkers to remain vigilant as well. We activated our protocols for this earthquake. We immediately started coordinating with all city, state, federal, and our utility partners. Public notifications were sent out both by Notify NYC and our wireless emergency alert system. You can hear some of the phone buzzings and delays from that have been issued. As soon as it happened, we convened here at New York City Emergency Management in order to be able to send out guidance. We activated, as soon as it happened, we convened here at NYSEM to send out our guidance for what happens during an earthquake, including on the possibility of aftershocks. We contacted our city hall and agency commissioners, as well as all of our partners at the federal and state level. That also includes all of our utility partners, our transportation partners at the MTA, Port Authority, and the airports. While there is a low likelihood that there will be aftershocks, we always want to be on the safe side. So if you are outside during an aftershock, please move to an open area away from buildings, trees, and power lines. If you are driving, pull over to a safe location. We're asking people to check in on their relatives, on their loved ones, neighbors, especially the children and their other individuals. I think that this is also an incredible time just to remind us all to make sure that we're prepared. So if you are a New Yorker, if you're visiting New York, we encourage you to sign up for Notify NYC. This is available in 14 languages, including American Sign Language, over 1 million subscribers. You can sign up by calling 311. You can call up by downloading the app or by going to nyc.gov/notify. We also encourage people to make sure that they have an emergency kit and to make sure that they know the guidance for earthquakes, which, as the mayor said, to drop, cover, and to get under furniture, sturdy furniture, or in a doorway to make sure that you are safe. Please also make sure that you're checking your utilities, that you know how to turn them on and off, especially if you are a property owner. With that said, who am I turning it over to?
Chancellor Banks.
Chancellor Banks. I'll turn it over to Chancellor Banks for an update on the schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, we're going to take it back. The reason why we're dipping in, you heard from the governor a short time ago, and then the mayor and government officials, is because this earthquake happened closer to New York, and that's why they immediately shut down 2 of the 3 major airports to assess the damage there. So we're just checking in with the mayor and the governor to see what's happening in New York. But closer here at home, we also felt it.
Let's get out to Hank right now and see what people are saying. And where are you now, Hank?
Well, I moved to 8th and Market, guys. It's the Linden, among other things, it's the Lindenwold line or the Patco line into New Jersey, and I thought I'd come over here because I thought we might get a little bit of the blowback from when they were stopped for a few minutes, precautionary. They're back in business now, as we know, guys, but literally no problems here at 8th and Market, at least as far as the Patco station is concerned. The woman who's up here and has been preaching all morning long hasn't taken a break as far as I know, so she apparently didn't feel it. But no, I was anticipating the possibility of at least maybe some crowd up. So, Miss, did you feel this earthquake a little while ago? You mind talking to me about it? I'm Hank with Fox 29. What did you feel? Talk to me real quick.
Well, the house actually shook.
The house shook?
Yeah, and
now,
I called my son. I'm in Jersey. I live in Camden.
Ooh, so you're closer than we were. Yeah. When the house actually shook, what goes through your mind at that point? Because that doesn't happen. That's not real.
No, it reminded me of 2/11 when we had the last earthquake. So, yeah.
Back up what?
You back up.
Back? Huh? Is she your girlfriend?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you feel the earthquake too? What is going on? What just happened?
I don't know. I don't know her.
Okay, she just told me to back away from you.
I thought she was.
Do you know her?
Not at all. Wow, not at all.
People got earthquake fever, man.
But no, I thought it reminded me of 2011 when we had the last earthquake.
Yeah. Well, it reminded you of the last time around, and you felt that one too?
Yep, I had to call my son.
Earthquake veteran at this point, living in
and
Philadelphia.
both times I was
What is
getting
that
in the
about?
shower. Both times I was getting in the shower and the house shook.
Getting in the shower. So that's a real compromised place, because then you're all butt naked and the house starts shaking. Now what? All right, I'm going to leave you be. Crazy business out here, guys. The good news is, you heard it from Governor Hochul a little while ago up in New York. She said she had utterly no complaints of any damage at all. Sir, did you feel this earthquake? Yeah. Talk to me a little bit. What's your name? Where are you from?
Marvin, from Philadelphia.
Of course, Marvin. Now, what did you feel? Take me through that moment. Like you were what, walking down the street?
Yeah, just a little shake. Yeah. I ain't really feel it that much, but I felt it just a little bit.
That's what I mean. So when you felt it, did it register to you? You thinking maybe it's a bus? You thinking this is an earthquake?
I thought it was a train.
Okay. See, that's the thing about being in the city and being a Philly guy, though. We do bump around a little bit. So the bus goes by, we feel it shake, you know? So
I thought it was
little shakes and tremors here in the city don't mean the same thing that maybe they do out in the country, right?
You're right about that.
All right. Well, Marvin, it's good talking to you, man. Thank you so much. I'm glad you're safe. I'm glad we all are, at least as far as I know. Knock on wood. Hopefully, guys, as a day or so passes, we'll find out we all got through it just fine.
And the Patco's back running again, so that's the good news. So that was only short delays. Patco's back running. Let's go find a location a little quieter, maybe, yeah.
Well, if anything we've learned today, it is quite the talker.
Thanks,
Ryan,
Hank.
what were you saying? I want to go out to Mike, but what did you say? Okay, I want to show you this video. This was during the moment of the quake. This is a cafe in New Jersey. As you can see, things are normal right there, but in just a couple of seconds, I think you're going to see the camera move there. Okay, so this is immediately following.
Yeah, it was 10:23 is exactly when it occurred. We have to re-rack it.
So subtle, people looking around, pretty much asking, like, what's going on here? But you see the moments afterwards, they kind of look around and say, was that in fact an earthquake? So you're looking at it once again.
That was it.
Customers looking around. It's one of those things, like, you certainly don't expect it. So for some people, it didn't affect them. Others, they knew right away that the ground was shaking.
Well, you can see this person, because you're sort of looking around being like, did you feel it? I felt it. Did you feel it? And then now they're heading outside being like, oh, I'm just going to leave. It's time for me, you know, one of those type of things.
That's what we've been seeing all across the area, including here at Fox 29. Some of us felt it, others did not until we were told. Even in some of the buildings downtown, especially along Market Street, a lot of the attorneys out there reached out to me and said, we didn't feel anything in the high-rise buildings here, but I know some businesses actually did let their workers who the nerves were a little too rattled to continue the day to actually leave early. But once again, looking at this video, this is from a cafe in New Jersey. The moment of the earthquake, just about 10:23, and some of the workers and customers are looking around there.
Yeah.
So it's been quite the morning. A lot of your comments are coming in. We'll read them in just a moment. Let's head back outside and get to Mike.
Yeah, I'm still, I didn't venture very far, but 2 Drexel students felt it, and they just happen to be geologists. I'm just kidding. I was hoping that's, what are you studying?
Environmental science.
And are you?
Computer science.
Okay, both going to be very smart and rich. What'd you feel?
Well, I was in bed at school, and I just felt it rumble a little.
In your dorm?
Yeah, in my dorm, on campus housing.
What'd you think it was?
I thought my neighbors were, like, being really rowdy.
Yeah, we're roommates, so I felt the same thing.
Your roommates?
Yeah.
You really, your neighbors are normally rowdy?
No, we just thought they were trying to prank us or something.
Well, it is college.
Yeah.
So how come you're still asleep at 10:20?
I don't have classes
what were you doing
Friday.
last night?
Well, I was working till midnight.
Okay. Well, good to talk to you. Did it scare you at all? Where are you from, by the way?
I'm from New Jersey, near the shore.
I'm from, like, Lansdale.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We don't have these quakes very often.
No, we don't.
I mean, we have little ones, but we don't even feel them. Okay, here's my theory. Thank you both. Thomas?
Yes.
Did it hit at 10:20 or 10:19? Is that when it hit?
10:23.
10:23? Isn't that when the Phillies first released the first visions of the new shirt?
It was 23 minutes afterwards, and there were people in line.
Could it be a reaction to the shirts?
And the Fanatic came out. Could it be? I know there was mixed reaction on social media ever since it was released. Look at you and your conspiracy theories
so
right
funny.
there, Mike.
And then I did get some people.
I kind of like it. I like the shirt.
That's what people are saying after seeing it actually being worn, says Philly 369. I like it. I think people are like, we wanted to hate it because we hate everything new and change is hard. You don't like anything, but people are like, all right.
Yes.
But I think for a lot of people,
everybody's going, no.
And that's so funny. And the Phillies tweeted that out. That is hysterical.
Shaking things
up a little bit.
For
How
some
clever.
people, it was the font, and others it was the color because they associated the color with the Union. But yeah, I can see why. I think after it was released, people like it.
It's the colors of the Philadelphia flag, right? That flies above City Hall. I don't know if it's up there today.
But it almost reminds me of the colors of like the Dolphins or something. It looks like it's a team from another city. Like it's not like our colors like paint the town red.
Yeah.
That's why it's confusing.
Yeah.
So.
Did you guys feel the earthquake? No? Oh, you did? Where was it? Where'd you feel it?
It was on 52nd.
52nd Street? Was it very bad?
No, it wasn't bad. I didn't feel it at first.
Yeah?
I'm just thinking it's people running around.
Yeah, you're at school? What school?
Sitting down. Wesley, high
felt
school.
it?
Yeah, sitting down during dance.
What, about 15 seconds long, something
Yeah.
like that? Yeah. You survived. You look healthy.
You too.
Look at you.
You too. All right, Mike, I know you're walking around, wandering around. We'll get back to you coming up in just a little bit. Everyone has a story where they were. Some felt it. Others did not. We'll check in just a bit.
And speaking of students, of course, we saw some kids from West Philly High, down in South Philly, Ellen Kaloje.
Hey guys, we as adults were pretty shaken up by this, right? Pun intended. So you can just imagine what young kids felt. We're here at Vare Washington Elementary School in South Philly. And when that 4.7 magnitude earthquake, the aftershocks were felt here, you can just imagine what young kids were feeling because the teachers were pretty upset and freaked out. They didn't know what was going on, so they were trying to calm the kids down. So when that hit, they were pretty freaked out. The second and third floor especially, that's where they really felt the aftershocks. They said it went on for about 2 minutes. The kids on the first floor did not feel as much, but we talked to parents, teachers, the dean of students, security guard here. They just all said they didn't know what was going on. They tried to keep calm so that they in turn could keep the children calm. And let's hear what they had to say.
So we were sitting in class and the kids was getting ready for lunch and the heater started rumbling, like really rumbling, and all our kids like started getting scared, and then all the teachers was coming out like, did you hear the earthquake? Did you hear the earthquake? Everyone heard it. It rumbled the whole building.
It felt like a tense shaking. I know the third floor, the teachers complained that it was like a heavy shaking. Some kids went underneath their desk, but I did let them know that if we felt more shaky, we would have brought them down to the basement. But it was like a 2-minute shake. Everybody came out, we gathered, we found information, we did a building check. Everyone was safe, like 2 minutes, shaking.
I heard Miss Turner say something about it.
Yeah. But you didn't feel it?
No. I think it was at recess or something. We didn't go outside today.
Are you glad you didn't feel it?
Yeah. What does an earthquake feel like?
What do you think? Is it shaky?
Maybe.
Maybe.
So that was little Penny. She's in kindergarten, and the kindergarten kids did not really feel it because they were on the first floor, so they didn't go outside when the rest of the kids did. But they also said that some of the older kids thought it was an active shooter drill, and that's why they went under their desks. So thank goodness it wasn't that, right? But they said everybody was just scared for a few minutes, but they calmed them down. We also talked to a principal from a nearby charter school. She just happened to be coming here for something else, and she said they really took it as a learning experience, and they talked to the kids about earthquakes, about the environment. So everyone said after they knew what was going on and that nobody was in danger, they tried to have a little fun with it and really take it as a learning lesson. So again, everybody's fine here at Vera Washington. Everybody was amazing. The kids tried to have fun with it after the initial shock. Again, pun intended, but after the initial shock wore off. But again, wonderful people here. Back to you guys.
Teachers all across the area and administrators doing a great job to calm the nerves there. Sad that our initial reaction would be that.
Well, you always
active
imagine
shooter,
the worst. You're trying to make sense of what's happening, and it's like something unusual happened. But now, as you said, Ellen, it's a teachable moment, and it's like science in action. Like you can then switch the lesson plan
have conversations. Ellen, we appreciate it. Drew, I want to get back to you. I'm getting a lot of pictures of trees down, and I wonder if this has to do with the rain and the saturation of the ground, and perhaps with the swaying that the trees may be down.
And it also depends on the soil type, because if you have more of a loose soil, say a soil like closer down the shore, that's going to experience the shaking much more than if right underneath the ground you kind of have a heavier, more together sort of soil. Tough to see if those are two things that are synced up. We'll keep an eye out and think more about that. Certainly the ground is very wet, and that's part of the reasons we had some tree damage just the other day when we had wind gusts about 40 to 50 miles an hour. The ground was so wet, it was tough for the roots of the trees just to stay anchored in that saturated, wet ground after we've been setting records for rainfall over the last couple months. On top of that, close to 3 to 5 inches of rain we just had. Whether or not the earthquake would have led to any trees being pushed down, you know, off the top of my head, I don't think that'd be the case, but we'll certainly keep an eye out and keep some ears out for that and talk to some experts. Here is the location of the earthquake. It's in Hunterdon County. That's right across from the Lehigh Valley, if you're not familiar with that part of New Jersey. In that part of New Jersey, there is a fault. That's a crack in the earth. In fact, there has been earthquakes there. I've been looking at a map of Pennsylvania, and I'll show you that map of Pennsylvania on our Barron computer. We have a lot of computers monitoring our different conditions. What you see right here are different dots. The bigger the dot, the greater the shaking, and any dot is an earthquake. A lot of time we have earthquakes in parts of Berks County, the big dot here, parts of Lancaster County where there's other faults, that is, and you can see some more dots around this region of Hunterdon County where that fault continues. It's a different fault from the one that's in Lancaster County. That yellow line you see right there is letting you know there is a crack in the rock, and what's interesting is last month there was an earthquake around that region, but it was on such a lower magnitude of scale most folks didn't even notice it, and that's traditionally the case when we do get earthquakes in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. They're so little that you either don't even feel it or it doesn't travel very far. Something I want to discuss is this seismograph. This is coming from Penn State Brandywine in media. This is a device that pretty much is like a pen that's hanging down, and when the earth shakes, it records. It recorded exactly when the earthquake happened, that big jump in the ground, and then the shaking, as we felt it, kind of got less and less, and then it stopped. I've been monitoring this for any aftershocks. As of right now, the USGS, that's the entity of the government that monitors earthquakes. It's similar to the National Weather Service. It stands for United States Geological Survey. They have not reported any aftershocks. Our graphic system popped up with something. It's since taken that away, and I've not seen any recordings of any shakings in at least this seismograph reading out of Penn State Brandywine. And even though that's far away from New Jersey, it's still sensitive enough to feel things. Let's talk about why we get earthquakes in this region. Hard to believe, right? We think about that out west. Mike Jerk's been telling you all about it. Now, out west, that's where the earthquakes are much more dramatic. And I'll show you why. I got some Post-it notes here for you. And here's what goes on out west. Underneath the ocean is a rock plate, and then we have the rock plate we live on, the North American rock plate. What happens out west is when the two collide, the ocean one's heavier and it goes underneath. That makes big volcanoes and it makes big earthquakes. Also out there, the faults are much bigger and they're more prone to having earthquakes when we actually get them. So in other words, they're more prone to aftershocks. Here it's a little different. So here's what happens here. Let's imagine these are rock plates. This is present-day Africa. This is present-day North America. Back in the day when we had that one big continent of land, present-day Africa slammed into North America. Here's what happened. The ground buckled. So the ground buckled just like that, and it made a mountain. The Appalachian Mountains are here because of when Africa slammed into North America, the rock plates were both the same weight, so the ground buckled. When that process happened, it left cracks in the rock plates, and those cracks, still to this day, are settling. It's much like if you ever crack your knuckles, I'm guilty of doing that myself, you hear some cracks, kind of your bones releasing gases and settling. That's what happens in our region. So from all that time ago, what's left over in some of the cracks in the rocks, they settle sometimes, and that's what triggered the earthquake here. We had Derek Pitts on earlier. He's from the Franklin Institute. He also talked about how we had glaciers here. The glaciers made it up to about the Lehigh Valley in Pennsylvania and in northern New Jersey. Even though they're long gone, thousands and thousands of years ago, it takes a long time for the ground to respond. Think of our ground like a memory foam pillow. When you put your head into the pillow, your head sinks into it, but then when you get your head up, you actually see the pillow go back to normal. Our ground is still doing that, and as it does that, that's another way that we can trigger some earthquakes as those cracks in the big bedrock that's below our feet, so big rock pieces, kind of shift around a little bit. And since we have it from what's present-day Africa slamming into North America, causing the Appalachian Mountains that run across the Northeast, we are prone to earthquakes around here, just oftentimes they're so low on that magnitude scale, we don't even feel them, or you really don't notice them. But today, certainly much different from that. The latest information in the Weather Center looking at the seismograph out of Delaware County and some other seismographs. So far, no aftershocks being reported here in this region. Guys, I'm curious, first of all,
what's the video next?
I was going to say it was so really cool to experience the earthquake with both of you, but I wanted to see if you had any questions.
Well, you've been just so thorough and so calming and reassuring.
I do have a question about the strength, because I've seen initial reports that this may have been the strongest since 1973.
So I'd have to research that in New Jersey. Remember the one we had about a decade ago out of Virginia? That was stronger than this one.
5.8, yeah.
Yeah, that one shook some things in my house here. So far, the reports are that it pretty much went all the way up to parts of Vermont and New England, like New Hampshire and northern New York, all the way down to Virginia for folks that felt this, and it's just because this is a much greater magnitude. Once you start getting above 2, more so like 3 or 4, that's when it'll be more widespread for places feeling it.
And when we mentioned the 4.8, this is the amount of energy, correct?
Correct. That's the shaking of an earth. It syncs up with the damage scale. So what it's doing is, this scale is twofold. And I have a great resource. This is coming out of a school in Michigan, Michigan Tech. And it's a component of, all right, how much of the earth was shaking. There's actually a different scale for that that's in terms of Roman numerals. And then based on that shaking, what does that do to buildings and things like this? For an earthquake of this magnitude, it says often felt, but only causes minor damage, maybe say a little crack or things like that. It doesn't cause the damage that we just saw out of Taiwan from earlier in the week.
Well, luckily for us, in this case, most certainly it just rattled nerves, but not too much damage at all. Drew, thank you. You've been doing a great job.
Absolutely.
Stick around. Obviously, we're going to keep checking back with you. You've been doing excellent work there.
I want to show you or share at least some of the videos that we've been getting in. The first one is out of Yankee Stadium, and this is closer to the epicenter, just north of Lebanon, obviously New York or Brooklyn here.
Bronx.
The Bronx, excuse me. Yes, you can see...
That's it.
I guess batting practice. That was the shaking of the camera. Each camera is certainly different here, but once again, the moment 10:23 when the ground shook didn't really seem like it affected anyone there. I'll tell you that.
I don't got a problem.
More video coming in. This was the moment a guy was playing guitar and the earthquake struck.
Who's that?
That was pretty intense. That was the most intense.
I think a lot of people asking that question, what had happened, what was that? So yeah, he kind of stopped playing guitar, looked around there, and the whole house seemed very dramatic, looking around, what was that? So from New York to the guy playing the guitar in Jersey to an attic. I don't know why he had the camera set up, but apparently he did there. I don't know if he was doing renovations, but this was the moment the earthquake struck. I don't know if there's sound on here or not. All right, now, so you have the camera positioned in his attic, and you can see it shaking there, the 4.8 at about 10:23.
That's a really good video. You can really get a lot of, it's really shake, rattle, and roll. It's really rattling right there.
All right.
And that's interesting because that was a good timeline. You get to see how long it was running for, because we felt it maybe like 10 seconds, you know, and so that looked like it was almost a longer stretch of about 20 seconds right there that it was shaking in that home.
And it really is fascinating. I guess if you're outside, you really don't have that immediate effect of the walls shaking around you, as we saw with Yankee Stadium, versus being inside the home or even possibly in an attic, which is what we're seeing all across the area. Some people felt it. They were driving, didn't feel it. Others were in office buildings, high rises, and didn't feel it as well.
All right, let's get over to Hawk Hill, of course, St. Joe's University at the edge of our city, and of course into Montgomery County. We're talking with a professor who was teaching to his students, obviously over there at St. Joe's, when this all happened. Good morning, Dr. Is it Rao? Rao?
It's Rao, Dr. Rao, and it's her students. But yes, I was teaching my chemistry honors class, and then we all felt the earthquake. My students' phones started ringing. They're not allowed to have their phones in class, but their parents were calling. And then I segued into an impromptu lecture on earthquakes and plate tectonics. So it was quite an exciting morning here.
Absolutely. So describe exactly what you felt and what the experience was like.
So I was standing lecturing, so I felt it more strongly than my students did, but we all stopped and looked at each other. We felt the building that we're in is Barbelin Hall. It's really the heart of Hawk Hill. It's a very old building, and we felt the entire building shaking. And it was so long that you knew it wasn't just a truck pulling up or construction on City Avenue. So it isn't really visibly that something is shaking. It's really you feel the vibrations.
Because you're having that big, sorry, 1 second, that big construction project, so it's easy to understand. You're building that tunnel to go underneath.
Exactly.
So you think like, oh, it's those trucks. They're doing a lot of things, and you're putting in a new dorm, so there's a lot of construction. So that would be first thought, top of mind.
Exactly. It just lasted too long for it to have been construction. So clearly it was at least 15 to 20, 22 seconds, something like that. I wish I'd timed it during it. But it just seemed like too long. And the first instinct that I have as a geochemist is to go look at the U.S. Geological Survey website. Anytime there's an earthquake anywhere on Earth, you can just go to USGS earthquake and you get a lot of information about it. Mm-hmm. Initially, they thought it was a 2.8, and I actually said to my students that felt like something bigger than a 2.8. It felt like a 5. And boy, did I feel vindicated when I saw that.
Professor's always right, I'll tell you that. What were some of the questions? Yeah, what were some of the questions?
I didn't know.
We all didn't know initially, I'll tell you that. That your students were asking you. What were some of the questions they wanted to know?
You know, is this dangerous? Why did we have an earthquake? And I actually explained to them it's fairly common to have earthquakes in this range. They're less common on the East Coast. The big difference that we have, we're not near a plate boundary, so that's primarily what I was explaining. We're not right by a plate tectonic boundary. The closest boundary to us is in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. But on the East Coast, we tend to have generally harder rocks that transmit the energy across large distances. So this is why this earthquake was reported all the way down to Maryland, all the way up to Vermont. And that's the nature of the type of rocks that we tend to have along the East Coast. Also, this was a fairly shallow earthquake, so we felt the shaking more vigorously than we might otherwise. But an earthquake of this magnitude is very unlikely to be dangerous. The one thing I noticed is, while there's no risk for a tsunami located where we are and so on, the USGS is still saying there's a 46% chance of at least one aftershock in the next week. So we have to, stay tuned to see what happens. They're also speculating it's part of a cluster of small earthquakes hitting this region.
That's
but
interesting.
All minor. Yeah, so it's very unlikely to cause any kind of damage.
So could this trigger other, and certainly don't have experience on discussing fault lines, but could this trigger other fault lines or other areas?
No, it's very unlikely. Located where we are, I think, this was the big dramatic event. I think it's very unlikely that we're going to see anything major after this.
Now, does this have any effect on the tides?
I don't think so. I think, but I'd have to look at a map of exactly how far we are from the ocean, but I don't think so. Off the top of my head, I would say no.
Sure.
Doctor, thank you so much for joining us, and have a safe and uneventful weekend for the rest of it after this one, and what stories to tell. Thanks so much.
If we learned anything, Professor is always right, Doctor. Thank you. It is
Thank you so much.
12:41. Thanks so much for staying with us. I want to get to Anthony Gargano.
Because,
yeah, we know him well. He knows us well as well. 10:23, my friend. What did you feel?
So yeah, it's supposed to be a weak draft, but Klingon's the one guy that could actually theoretically play with Edie and actually bother him, right? This will be, in my opinion, a little bit of a litmus test for Edie and how he'll do in the NBA, because I think Donovan can actually really guard. He's an incredible defensive player, and we'll see, how Edie will do against guys his size more in the NBA, because he hasn't had to face it once in college, truthfully.
Yeah, that's why. It's weird. If you saw my face, it felt like we had an earthquake here.
Oh.
The building shook.
Oh, wow.
And it's still kind of shaking. Wow. This is wild. We should find out. This is like bizarre. Yeah. Like it's wild.
So yeah, it's supposed to be a weak draft. But
so that is the initial reaction. You kind of go blank.
His eyes were like, what is going on right now? They were talking draft, but...
Live on the air here on the Good Day After Show at 10:23 when the earthquake struck, Jim, our news director, came down and everyone started buzzing and talking, and we had to pause for just a second.
He came down and we could feel it, because what happens, our building actually moves a little bit. It can, particularly because we're like right on top of the subway. So we're used to a little bit of that kind of thing happening, but it's one of those where it was like going on, and then we were all like looking at each other, that's not an earthquake. No, it's just the subway.
And it was an earthquake.
Like bouncing, yes.
I want to show you some more videos. We have one more coming out. I believe this is from TikTok. Certainly a natural reaction there. A lot of people have their cell phones out, recording themselves, perhaps on video conference. What's interesting, I was just about to say that, what's interesting is the dog started barking even before she felt the shake, and we actually got a number of comments on that as well, that their pets kind of felt something, knew something, that the ground was about to shake.
We got a couple comments from Chester County. People were saying the birds.
We're flying
they had
around.
a reaction,
yeah,
so something,
scattered.
maybe like the tree shakes and they whatever, or they have that animal intuition or something, could feel the vibration. All right, so we had that one. We also have a couple other videos as well.
We're going to get to, I want to get outside. Do we have the videos, or can we get it to Jeff Cole? All right, let's take a look at one more.
I think just her reaction to afterwards, where you realize...
And asking what is happening. All right, back outside we go. Jeff Cole, what are you hearing? What are you seeing?
I first want to say that I'm a little embarrassed that I normally think that I'm pretty aware of my surroundings, but I was actually sitting in the newsroom this morning when this happened, and Thomas, of course, you were doing the after show, and all of a sudden I see some of the newsroom managers who are upstairs apparently come down and moving pretty urgently and saying that they had felt an earthquake, and folks, I didn't feel a thing. I mean, I was watching the Attorney General in the state of New Jersey and some investigators there have done a big bust of a dog fighting ring in Vineland, and they were doing a press conference, and I was watching a stream of it. I didn't notice anything, so it passed without me noticing. So, I'll have to reassess how aware I am of my environment. But either way, really quickly, so my wife was actually on a train, on an Amtrak train, heading to New York to see her brother. and the train was slowed. She texted me and said, "What's going on? Why is the train slowing?" And then it stopped. And I texted her and asked her if she had felt the earthquake. She said she hadn't, but they stopped because they were about to cross a train bridge, and they got out and inspected it before they moved forward. And she did actually get into Manhattan as well. And then another story I heard just over my phone, but Alexander Wallach is a producer who worked here at Fox 29, now works at our sister station up there in New York. He lives in North Jersey, and he said that his house, about 30 miles, he says, from the epicenter here, and he said his house, his parents' house, shook pretty aggressively. So we certainly are hearing from folks, at least my friends, my relatives, who have had some impact here. So we drove out here to Medford in Burlington County and have spoken to some people. You know, sometimes when you do these MOS, you don't get people who want to talk to you. Certainly today they very much did want to talk to us, and here's what we heard from folks out here.
I was sitting at my computer at my kitchen table, and I just was like, "Ooh, what is that?" And I thought maybe it's an airplane overhead. That's what I thought. I know, because I'm in just a little residential area, and I didn't think there were any trucks going by, or I probably would have assumed that.
Yeah. But that was the feel? It was more the feel of a heavy plane?
A slight shake, and I heard a noise like sort of towards my pantry and other side of the kitchen, and thought that, well, what was that? But I didn't feel like anything fell, so I didn't even check. But I did, afterwards, I got up and looked out of another window thinking, well, maybe there was a truck that went by, because it wasn't that much.
I was playing on the court, pickleball, and my partner stopped because he got something on his phone. And I said, we never stop to answer the phone for pickleball. So we continued to play, didn't feel anything, and we got off the court, and his wife had said, "Did you feel the tremor?" And we said, "No, we did not."
You did?
Wow.
Did not
So
feel
you're in the process of playing pickleball.
We were in the process of playing pickleball.
And he first made the mistake of stopping. Because you're thinking it's his phone.
It was his phone.
Which is very wrong.
Right, and it was his wife, too. So I'm not going to answer it, is what he said. And I won't tell you where she was, because he would get embarrassed.
So there are a couple of themes there that I think are important, right? And that would be that everything in America has some tie to pickleball. She was playing pickleball, her partner stopped, which you absolutely can't do if you're playing pickleball. You can't stop for your phone, and this person did. But of course it was his wife alerting him that there had in fact been an earthquake here. And I heard you folks just before we came on that someone was suggesting that animals or their pets were sort of more acutely aware of it. And I did interview another woman here who said that she was sitting down and she had her two dogs, I think she said, on her lap, and really before she sensed it, the animals did, and they jumped off her lap and started barking. But at least here in Medford, here in New Jersey, folks are certainly willing to talk about it and did feel it and find it pretty interesting.
A lot of stories. Maybe that was your problem. At 10:23, you should have been playing pickleball instead of at work.
Hey man, if you know a court, dude, I'm ready to go, buddy.
One-on-one, we'll do it. All right, we appreciate it, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, man.
All right, let's get out to Ellen. You can talk to some more people.
Yeah, we've talked to a lot of people today. I'm telling you, everybody wants to talk about this earthquake, right? We're here at Vare Elementary in South Philly, and I want to tell you, I really believe it's a microcosm of all the schools here in Philadelphia and everywhere in the area. All the teachers here, the staff, the parents who came to pick up their kids after everything happened, they didn't come to get them out, but they just wanted to come at lunch or whatever. They just handled this with such grace and calmness. So when it hit, the kids really had no idea, right? The parents had no idea what was going on, and the kids and the parents, the teachers that were on the second and third floor, they felt it more than anybody. The kids that were on the first floor in the basement, they didn't feel it as much, but everybody had no idea what was happening at the time, right? They weren't sure if it was an active shooter, so they went under the desk. Some of the older kids, of course, they figured out it wasn't that, but everybody was just scared at first, so the teachers tried to calm them down. We talked to parents, teachers, staff members, the dean of students. We talked to a principal who was coming here from another school. Everybody was just shaken up. I keep saying pun intended, but that's really the only way to describe what was happening here. And we talked to one mom who came to pick up her son's homework.
My daughter, she was like, "What's going on, Mommy? What's going on?" And my son's like, "Mom, is somebody going in your bedroom door?" Because the doors were shaking. And yeah, I was like, it's okay, I don't know, but it's okay.
I was standing in the main office with my office manager, and the whole office shook. I was like, wait, I think we just experienced an earthquake. And then I called upstairs to talk to the other teachers on the second floor and the third floor, and they said, oh my goodness, we felt it as well. Then we started to get a flood of phone calls from parents asking, were the kids okay? Was everybody good? And I assured them that everything was fine.
I got a text message, oh my God, Mr. O, did you hear the earthquake? I'm like, what earthquake? What happened? We're in the basement. We didn't really feel anything. But you're like, oh my God, the kids are so scared, you know. But in times like that, the most important thing to do is to just make a little joke out of it. You know, like, we're the adults. We made the earthquake go away, you know. We beat the earthquake up, you know, just to make them feel, you know, safe.
I love that Mr. O said they just tried to make a joke of it, right? He tried to calm the kids down. He's the dean of students here at Vare Washington Elementary. And then the second woman you heard from, she's the principal at a nearby charter school. She said they really made it a teaching moment. They talked about the environment and about earthquakes and how everybody here, you know, can experience these aftershocks. We're not in California, she said, but they really tried to tell the kids, it's okay, we're going to keep you safe. This is what happens in an earthquake, but everybody is okay. So again, I want to give a shout out to all the teachers and the staff here at Vare and at all the schools here in Philadelphia, and I know around the area in general that all the teachers, I'm sure, did such a great job calming all the kids down. Back to you guys.
So critical, that voice of reason, that calm at time. I know a lot of parents are appreciative. Ellen, thank you.
Absolutely. All right, so let's get our reporter Jen Lee has made it up to the epicenter where this all occurred. You're there in Hunterdon County. Good morning. So what are people saying and seeing, and what's happening there now?
Yeah, we literally pulled up about a minute ago. We're at the Borough Hall here in Lebanon, and I know within this special broadcast that we've had, you guys had a chance to hear from the mayor, Jim Pittenger. Thank you so much for meeting with us, and it's been quite the busy day for you.
It sure has. Yep, started off with a big shake, and it hasn't slowed down since. So we're just trying to assess everything and figure out what's going on, and so far so good though.
Yeah, and we're hearing a couple choppers, maybe news helicopters in the sky. We've been seeing people taking walks within the neighborhood. And you are a council member here, Marlene.
Yes, hi. Yeah, so it happened around, it was about 10:23 or so when we felt, I was home working remotely today, and my daughter Ava was home from school, and we heard it sounded like a sonic boom many times over. It was really like a bomb dropped. So we ran outside, saw our neighbors. You know, this is the kind of community, everybody supports each other. We're all together, everybody responded. Our leadership team was here right away, OEM, fire, state police. It's been a great response, and so far it looks like everyone's safe, and structurally everything looks good.
Yeah, and Ava, did you also feel that same boom?
Mm-hmm. I was just about getting ready. We had a flooding in our basement just yesterday, and we had some crew down there. I was getting ready to work with them, and all of a sudden I hear this boom. The first thing I think is maybe the boiler exploded, something there. I did not think it would be an earthquake, so I got my little dog, my little puppy, Teddy, and I ran out of the house as soon as I could.
Yeah, and you have to think the quakes probably felt a bit stronger right here in Lebanon. I'm looking at the USGS website at the interactive map. It was just north of this community here. And Oliver, I saw you taking a walk here. We wanted to talk with you about what you felt about 10:23 this morning.
I was just sitting on the couch watching YouTube, and then my mom was in the kitchen making bacon, and as soon as she turned on the stove, I just heard bam, bam, and then I just ran downstairs, and it was like 10 seconds, and it was just shaking.
Yeah, shaking. And Melissa, Mom, I want to pull you in here. By the way, it's spring break this week for the kids, so the kids are home, you're cooking your bacon, and then what are you thinking?
I don't know. I thought the building was exploding. Honestly, we've never felt an earthquake before.
Yeah, and in some ways it still feels kind of quiet in the neighborhood, but there is some sort of unsettled feeling. If you look around and you kind of start having conversations with people, I think it's almost that shared moment of, what were you doing? Did you feel it? And there were people who actually didn't feel it. I don't know if that was the case here.
No, I think everybody felt it.
In Lebanon, yes.
In Lebanon, yeah.
At least, yeah.
Definitely. Our understanding is it was a 1 in a 240-year event, so So it's, it's a crazy, just to be in the middle of it is just nuts.
Yeah, we keep hearing that this is a historical event, 4.8 magnitude, pretty strong, not something that we typically see in this area or region at all. And just to know that this earthquake was felt as far up north as perhaps Maine, as far south as perhaps Washington, D.C., the epicenter being so close right here to Lebanon.
Right. Oh, yeah, 100%. Like I said, I was working from home and things came off the walls and everything was rattled. So it was definitely, a surreal event for sure. So
yeah.
And like Marlene, I had some work going on at the house, and my initial thought was, they did something. What did those guys do? So when I go outside, and they were just as shook up as me. So
yeah, a lot of confusion. Everyone's still kind of coming down from the realization of what actually occurred. What happens next now for the community here?
So we've been doing an assessment ever since the event. The governor's office, our congressman has reached out, so everybody's been in contact. Knock on wood, so far we have not. Our understanding is there hasn't been any significant damage. So, but we're still investigating. There's been a couple of fire calls for maybe some gas leaks and stuff like that, which doesn't surprise me that something would get rattled loose. So
yeah. Hopefully nothing significant. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, everyone. We're going to continue to stay in Lebanon and talk with people. We're going to have a full report later tonight, Fox 29 News at 5 o'clock. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Jen. Great job up there. Absolutely. And we'll look forward to that coming up this evening.
And a lot of new information coming in. Drew, you had mentioned prior that there was a possible 2.0 aftershock.
And we can now confirm that, Thomas. You were asking about that earlier, and so an aftershock did happen. That happened about an hour ago. It popped up live right here as we were in the weather center, and our weather graphic system gets that instant information. The USGS, those are the folks that monitor earthquakes, confirmed it. It was in the exact same area. We'll take a look at some of our maps here around the room. So we had a 2.0 and a 4.8. 2.0s, you don't really feel them. So that's why we didn't get our phones going off and people are like, did you feel that? Did you feel that second one? No, it's too low on the scale. But when you start getting above 2, like a 3, a 4, people start feeling it. The bigger the number, the more spots that feel it. So there is the spot. The actual aftershock was pretty much just right down the road, but here's the little note that was different, and I'll take you over to our Barron weather computer. We have all these different computers tracking everything. The aftershock was deeper in the ground. It was 5 miles down below the Earth's surface. The original big earthquake that we felt around the region here, that was only 3 miles below the ground. The closer it is where that crack in the rock shifts and causes the shaking, the closer it is to the surface, the more shaking that happens, the more people can feel it. When it's deeper in the ground, it's a little bit harder to feel, and also, too, it's just such a low magnitude. But it did trigger an aftershock that's been reported by the USGS after that big earthquake that we had around 10:30 this morning. Both of those two were in Hunterdon County in New Jersey. And guys, appreciate you sticking with us all day right here in the Weather Center. We'll send it back to you at the desk.
Drew, once again, excellent job. I know you're going to continue the coverage on Fox Local in just a moment. Drew's also a professor, as you can tell, so we've been learning a lot this morning. Once again, thank you, my friend.
Thank you.
Thank you, Drew. Yeah, you can always download the app. It's the Fox Local app, and you can stream that right there on your smart TV or on your phone or any of your devices as well, because we'll keep that coverage. And, of course, we'll have be back on television. If our mayor, Sherelle Parker, has a news conference, we'll go back on television in addition to also streaming on our Fox Local. Yeah. And then, obviously, one would imagine if Governor Phil Murphy did, and he had some speaking out about what happened. But we were just there at the heart of where it happened with Jen Lee.
We're monitoring all the government agencies, transportation as well. As soon as we get new developments, you know what we're going to do. We're going to break into coverage or programming here on Fox 29. But once again, can't stress it enough. Keep watching us, Fox Local. Download the app, and what a morning it has been. A 4.8 at about 10:23. And then about an hour and a half later, we had that aftershock. Be safe out there. Once again, thanks for joining us this morning. Have a safe day. Fox Local continues right now.
Hey, good afternoon. Thanks for sticking with us with our live coverage of the earthquakes that happened in Hunterdon County in New Jersey. I'm meteorologist Drew Anderson. I'll stick with you to get you up to date on what everyone was experiencing around our region, explain why we had that earthquake today and how we are prone to earthquakes in this region. And we'll get you up to date on how there was an aftershock and talk about the potential. Is there more aftershocks coming down the pike? First of all, I want to get you some of the latest information that has just come into the Fox 29 Weather Authority Weather Center. It is the aftershock from that original earthquake. Let's walk through the day and get you up to date in case you didn't feel it, or you just woke up to the text or got the text and went, whoa, what's going on? We were here live on the Good Day After Show. We were sitting in the newsroom, me and the Good Day producers, and all of a sudden, we feel shaking below us. We're like, no big deal. We feel this all the time because there's a subway that goes below the building, so it shakes the building a little bit, and I feel that around town in different buildings here in Philadelphia. But this shaking was much more pronounced. I've actually never felt shaking on the third floor of this building. We're on the third floor here. Not only do you feel it, it was really noticeable, and then it was long lasting. It lasted about 30 seconds. Felt like a rumble here. I didn't see anything in our building around me shaking. I just felt it. Thomas Drayden, who's been doing an excellent job with our live coverage this morning, was in a stairwell, a great spot because it's really sturdy. It can help absorb some of the energy in particular, so that's a great spot to be if there is an earthquake. He didn't notice it as he was running upstairs. It was really one of those things of either you felt it or you didn't. On our main computer here, I want to give you an update from the United States Geological Survey. These are the folks that monitor earthquakes. So think of them as the National Weather Service for earthquakes. The United States Geological Survey always puts out maps with what's going on. This is the aftershock, but first I want to get started with the main earthquake. There it is right there at a magnitude 4.8. That is pretty high for this region. If you remember the earthquake that we had about a decade ago, I think it was 2011, the one that was down in Virginia that folks up and down the East Coast felt, that one, it was in the magnitude of like a 5.8, somewhere around there, 5.6. So even higher on the scale. The higher on the scale you go, the more places feel the shaking, and more importantly, the stronger the shaking. When you're on the low end of that scale, you don't really notice it as much. So with the aftershock that we felt in Hunterdon County in the same region, I doubt that folks even really noticed it because 2.0 is pretty weak. In fact, that USGS, they don't even report it on the map. I had to change the settings. One of our viewers said, hey, Drew, make sure you check the settings right there to make sure you're getting them all because they don't report them when they're less of a magnitude of 2.5. And I'll show you the reason why. I want to take you right now to Michigan Tech. This is our earthquake magnitude scale. And notice this threshold right here of 2.5. This is the point of when it has the potential to maybe start causing damage. It would start causing damages once you get higher up in the scale. Now, we got a report from someone. Mike Jarek had a friend or someone like that who was saying, hey, I've just been fixing up my home here in parts of New Jersey, and look at that, now I got a little crack in the ceiling. When we have earthquakes of this certain magnitude and things like that, generally speaking around here and even across the country, they wouldn't cause cracking in buildings, but it all depends on your structure. So circling back, when you have an earthquake less than 2.5, so our aftershock in Hunterdon County was less than 2.5, it's usually not felt, but a seismograph can record it. So let's talk more about a seismograph because I've been monitoring them. This right here is a seismograph reading from Penn State Brandywine. That's in Delaware County, right down the road from downtown Media. Here's what's going on. Every hour, there's a line of new information. And I want you to picture a pen that's just dangling in the air. And essentially, this pen is dangling in the air, and on a sensor, like say maybe a piece of paper, or maybe just a computer, it's just there. But when the ground shakes, it records things. So there wasn't very much shaking at all. And then all of a sudden, boom, you see that blossoming right there in that hour of the 10 o'clock hour. Now, the reason it says 14, this is in weather time, they're a couple hours ahead. So they're about 4 hours ahead. That's why it says 14. Oh, you know what? It looks like it's just cut off the screen, which is even better, so you don't see it's 14. When we look at our weather maps, we have to do the conversion in our head from weather time that's centered over England to our current time zone. So there is the shaking there, and a couple things I want to break down on the seismograph reading that we see from the earthquake that occurred in New Jersey, just across from the Lehigh Valley, is how you see those sharp spikes. When it first happened, that's when the shaking was the greatest. That's when the seismograph recorded the most shaking, and it gradually stopped, so it took about 30 seconds for that to end. That's one seismograph there. I saw another one from a different spot. I'll zoom out. This one is from Delaware. It's just across the state line. And this particular one, I'll zoom up. These are all the different monitoring areas that we have around our region. This one, this is coming right from near a museum just north of Wilmington, across the state line nearby Kennett Square. And so this seismograph by this museum right there, so near the Winter Thur, well, this one had a similar story. It kind of showed the same picture. There it is right there. What's interesting is both of those seismographs did not record the aftershock. And that's just a testament to how weak that aftershock was when it came in at a magnitude of about 2.0. So they're genuine ones you don't feel. That's why the U.S. doesn't even put it on their main map. You got to click a couple buttons just to get it all up. But today's earthquake did cause an aftershock. All right, so let's take a step back now and just talk about why are there earthquakes in New Jersey and Pennsylvania? We leave that to the folks in California, right? Well, it's all about what's below our feet. So a couple different things. First, let's talk about why they get earthquakes in California. You know, it's a privilege. I get to teach this to college students. I'm a professor, teach at some local universities, and I teach earth science. I teach why we get earthquakes, why we get volcanoes. And here's what's going on the West Coast. I want you to imagine my Post-it notes as the rock below our feet. Here's the rock below the ocean, the Pacific Ocean. There's a rock all the way below it. And now here's where we live, North America, the continent there. So the Pacific Ocean, here's what's happening. It's running into North America, but the rock plate that the ocean sits on, it's heavier. So when it slams into North America, it sinks. And when one rock plate goes underneath another, just like that, that makes big volcanoes and it makes big earthquakes. So Mount St. Helens out in Oregon, it's triggered because of one rock plate going underneath another. There's an area called the Ring of Fire, and it literally is a ring around the Pacific Ocean because the Pacific rock plate is running into North America and it's running into plates over in Asia and where Australia is. And just because that ocean rock plate's heavy, when it hits a continent, it goes below and it has just the potential to cause big earthquakes. It doesn't always, but out there, that's why you get the biggest earthquakes. Let's bring it here at home. So we don't have rock plates right now slamming into us, but the reason we had an earthquake today is, back in the day, that is what happened. So now I want you to imagine this as what's present-day Africa, that rock plate, so a continent. And then another continent rock plate, what's present-day us, North America. Well, those two, back in the day when we were forming that giant supercontinent, they slammed into each other just like this. And look at that. You see the shape right there? It's the shape of a mountain, because that's what happens. When two pieces of land that weigh the same, they slam into each other, well, the land buckles. So here they are coming together, the land buckles, and it makes mountains. So the whole reason we have the Appalachian Mountains here in Pennsylvania and running all the way down from Maine to Georgia is because of Africa slamming into North America and the ground buckling. When that happened, that led to cracks in the rock. That's what a fault is. A fault is just a tiny crack in the rock, but even all these thousands, dare I say millions of years later, those cracks, they're still settling and adjusting, and there's still a little movement around those cracks. I got a question for you. Did you ever crack your knuckles? I'm guilty of it. I get my knuckles and I crack them. Maybe you hear it over the camera. I'm pretty cracky. I feel like maybe that bubble wrap paper you just squeeze, I feel like that's how my bones do. They make all those noises. Well, when we do that, I think of that as our bones settling. They're giving off gases. That's the noise you hear. But I think of it as our bones settling. And that's essentially what happens for our part of the country. Out in the other part of the country, there's energy like that. Rock plates slamming into each other. The energy here, it's leftovers. That's why earthquakes here in our part of the country are not as strong as the ones out in the western part of the United States. It's just because literally the rocks below our feet are just settling. They're cracking their knuckles. Because back from when Africa slammed in to North America just like that, ended up making cracks in the rock. You can even see some faults around our region. Not Lebanon, New Jersey, but Lebanon County in Pennsylvania, there's this little cave you can go in, and you can see like a little crack in the cave a little bit, and that's left over from when the Appalachian Mountains formed. So the big earthquake that we're talking about today, and we were live on the air when it happened with the Good Day After show, that happened about 10:30 or so. That was a magnitude 4.8 in Lebanon, well, near Lebanon in Hunterdon County. I'll show you the exact location, and I'll kind of show you some of our maps to kind of give you a feel of exactly what was going on. So the reason we've been talking about Lebanon, it's just the closest community of consequence to the earthquake, but the actual earthquake itself, it was a couple miles up into the northeast of Lebanon. So there it is right there to kind of give you a feel. We're talking in New Jersey. This is in Hunterdon County, New Jersey. That's right across from the Lehigh Valley. That is also where we ended up having that magnitude 2.0 aftershock about an hour later, a little bit more than an hour later. That magnitude is so low that you don't even feel it, and it didn't even register on that seismograph reading in Delaware or in Delaware County. So those seismographs only recorded that earthquake that so many people felt, and it just goes to show you, you know what, earthquakes of that magnitude, no big deal. Now, something that's really interesting is this area is prone to earthquakes. Yeah, not only that part of New Jersey, but also Pennsylvania. Here's what you're looking at, a map of Pennsylvania, and it slides into New Jersey. All these circles are past earthquakes, and you see on the bottom of the map, it says magnitude. The bigger the circle, the greater the shaking. There's actually some faults around Berks County, Pennsylvania. That would be this region right here, and Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, I believe it's called the Marduk Fault, where it's actually pretty prone to earthquakes. Here's the reason why. In that part of our area, so we're talking Lancaster County and also parts of Berks County, what's present-day Maryland is actually underneath that area. And it all goes back from when Africa slammed in to North America. But let's look at this map again. And I want to give you a feel of how, first of all, it is frequent to get earthquakes, but here's the catch. They're so itty-bitty, you don't even feel them, you don't even notice them. Most of those circles, they're pretty small. Most of those circles you see, they're a magnitude of 2, and as we were just chatting, they don't even register on the seismographs. So no big deal there, but I do want to point out that area of New Jersey where we had that earthquake is prone to earthquakes. In fact, just last month, they had a magnitude 2.2 earthquake pretty much right in the exact same spot, but we didn't hear people talking about it. Why? That shaking amount is just too low. This magnitude scale factors in, first of all, how much shaking, and then secondly, how much is that damaged buildings, and they rank it on that scale. The higher the number, the much greater shaking, the much greater damage to buildings. So that happens in the area because there is a fault that runs through the area. Here right there is a look at the fault. See that yellow line? There's a long crack in the rocks, and it's all because of how Africa slammed into North America and caused the Appalachian Mountains. So this area, because of that, is prone to getting earthquakes. Pretty much anywhere around that crack in the rock is prone to having the rocks just kind of settle a little bit over time and for a little bit of shaking happening. Because when the rocks move a little bit, that little tiny movement, and it's very tiny in the earth, does make some big time shaking. So the first earthquake, the one that people were texting and calling about, I got so many people reporting to me. Thank you so much for all your reports to my email, my socials, and all my friends saying, yeah, we felt it here in Berks County, we felt it there. Well, that first one was about 3 miles below the Earth's surface. When an earthquake where the actual energy of it kind of sliding, in other words, that rock just kind of slides around the crack and that energy gets released, the closer to the surface it is, the more you feel the shaking. The second aftershock was deeper in the ground. So the first earthquake, that magnitude 4.8, that was about 3 miles below our feet. The 2.0 earthquake that happened in the same region in Hunterdon County, New Jersey, across from the Lehigh Valley, like places like Allentown, Bethlehem, and Easton, just to give you a reference. Well, that right there was about 5 miles below the ground. So here's what's interesting. We've been having some reports about pets feeling the shaking and kind of noticing something before the actual shaking happened. I wouldn't be surprised, because when an earthquake happens, it gives off 3 pieces, 3 rounds, I'd call it, of energy, of what's called these seismic waves. The ones that we traditionally feel are the ones that are at the surface. They're called surface waves. They're the last to arrive. The first that are pretty much showing up first, they're called primary waves, primary like first. In France, I believe they call the bottom floor the primary floor, so it kind of all makes sense. So many science things I had to learn over the years, so that's how I kept primary wave kind of straight in my head, because the next type of wave that comes out when there's an earthquake is called a secondary wave, an S wave. So what happens is when there is a tiny little shift in the ground, a primary wave gets released. Oftentimes you don't feel it unless this is a giant sort of earthquake. You can feel some of these P waves and S waves, in other words, the first little bits before the actual big time shaking, out in the west where earthquakes are much stronger. But in this region, You wouldn't feel it, but you know, pets notice and feel different things than we do. So I wouldn't be surprised if they felt the primary wave, the first little bit of energy to arrive that we didn't feel, or the secondary wave, the second little piece of energy to arrive, and then the last one that arrives, that's the one we felt, the surface wave. Here's why. They travel right at the surface of the Earth. Those other waves are deeper in the ground where the earthquake actually happened. They're deeper in the ground, so it's tougher to feel that energy. The part of the energy that gets closer to the Earth's surface, you feel it much more. And by the way, what type of soil and what kind of rock is below your feet makes a difference in how you feel an earthquake. If you have looser soil, you can get much more shaking. If you have harder rock, it's harder. It's harder to, at the end of the day, get that shaking to rattle a building as much. But when you have hard rock below your feet, you're going to feel and have that energy travel much farther in place. So that's part of the reason why we're getting reports right now of the earthquake being felt pretty much around the Northeast. I've been monitoring things from the USGS of who's been feeling the different earthquakes, and I'll give you a feel of that right there. So we'll kind of look around, and I'll pull up the map. This is giving you a little pinpoint of where it happened. Maybe you can see where it says Allentown, and you can see how close it is to New York. We covered a live press conference in New York City because they were a lot closer to the shaking. The closer you are to where the earthquake happened, the more shaking you get. So they were closing to the original point that kind of gave out that energy. So they likely felt more shaking. And same goes for the Lehigh Valley than, say, us here in Philadelphia. So some of the things I've been monitoring on this map, and I know it's tough to see, but I want you to look at some of the circles and the triangles. Notice how they extend up here to northern Vermont and in northern parts of New York, and notice how they go down to Virginia. So on seismographs across the region, this earthquake was felt as far north as parts of Vermont, so northern New England, and as far south as of now, we're getting reports in Virginia with so many spots feeling it, and you can get a feel the closest you are to where the earthquake happened, that's where the most shaking has happened. So we are with you this afternoon on Fox Local, and we're so glad to have you with us. We're here to talk about that earthquake that happened around 10:30. It was 4.8. That's pretty high for these regions. Last time we had something this high would have been about over 10 years ago when we had that earthquake in Virginia over 5 in terms of the magnitude scale, and we felt it up here in Pennsylvania, and folks up and down the East Coast felt it because it was much stronger in terms of the shaking. And because a lot of times we have stronger bedrock in the east, the energy from an earthquake can travel a little bit more up and down here versus the soil is different out west, so a lot of times the energy from an earthquake doesn't travel as far out. Then that triggered an aftershock because it moved the rocks around and it led to one of the cracks in the rocks in a different location shifting a little bit. And this was actually right down the road from where the original earthquake happened. In fact, I'll show you this right there. So there is the magnitude 2.0. It's the small little circle. Well, there's kind of our big circle, but I want to take a closer look at the smaller circle right there. So you see this little smaller one right above, oh, what letter is that? The letter I, that's the 2.0, and look how close it is to the big circle. That's where we had the 4.8. We have a couple other circles because I was just kind of setting things up, but I just want to show you how close both the aftershock, so a little tiny earthquake after the original earthquake, are to each other in that northeastern corner of Hunterdon County in New Jersey. So we continue to keep an eye on things here in the Weather Center. Monitor, are there any more aftershocks? Here's what we'll do. Let's take a break. I'll check out some of the seismometer readings. If there's weak aftershocks, they're not going to feel them, but I'll see if the United States Geological Service is reporting any more. Give me about 2 minutes to do that, and I'll be right back here with you as we continue our live coverage of the earthquake that happened in Hunterdon County, New Jersey, and was felt all across our region from the Lehigh Valley to Philadelphia to Delaware and New Jersey. Thanks for staying with Fox 29. Great to have you back with us. You are looking at where we had an earthquake and then an aftershock. It was in Hunterdon County, New Jersey. That is not too far from New York City. It's just down the road from the Lehigh Valley. You can see Bethlehem there to give you a feel, north of I-78. The closest community that it was by that, you know, it's like a bigger town, that would be in Lebanon in New Jersey, and that is what we're showing you right there. Great to have you back here in the Weather Center with us. I'm meteorologist Drew Anderson as we continue to monitor all sorts of earthquake happenings. And I say that because not only are we monitoring the different reports that humans felt, but also that animals felt. They noticed it right before the shaking, and we're keeping an eye out for more aftershocks. I just checked during the break from the United States Geological Survey. They're the folks that monitor for earthquakes, and there was no reports anymore of any more aftershocks. We did have an aftershock reported about an hour and change after the original earthquake. I want to give you a feel about that. So the original earthquake happened in northeastern Hunterdon County. There it is right there. And then let's just kind of slide down to where the aftershock happened. See that little tiny dot right there above the letter I? That's where the aftershock happened. It was a sneeze away from the original earthquake. That was triggered by the shaking of the earthquake itself. And I want to show you the shaking of the earthquake on a seismograph. I'm nerding out a little bit on this one. And here's what's going on. This is how we tell when an earthquake happened. There's a system around the world of these devices that just kind of literally hang, and they're buried below the ground. So this particular one is in Delaware. It's in Newcastle County, just down the road from the state line and from Kennett Square. This one is at Penn State Brandywine in Delaware County. This one is below ground, and the reason they're below ground is you want them closer to kind of the bedrock where the shaking starts. The epicenter, so in other words, the area below the Earth's ground where today's earthquakes happened were a couple miles down. The big earthquake was about 3 miles down to the ground at about 4.7 kilometers. So if you're kind of scrolling through, you might say, all right, 4.8, 4.7. 4.8 is the magnitude in terms of shaking and how that damages buildings on the one scale. 4.7 kilometers is how far down the ground it is. I did the math for you. That's 3 miles down. Then the aftershock, that was a 2.0 on the scale, wasn't even really felt. It was not registered at all by either seismograph, either the one in Media in Delaware County or the one in Newcastle County in Delaware. And traditionally, when you get earthquakes that are less than 2.5, they really don't register. The USGS on their website doesn't even really post them because they're frequent, first and foremost, and then secondly, you know, people really don't even feel them. So we didn't get any reports of anyone feeling the aftershock. Certainly it may have been felt by someone right where it happened, if you happen to be kind of right over it, but that'd be about it, with a magnitude 2.0. And it really gives you context of how quickly things change the higher the number. You know, to go from 2 to 4 sounds like nothing to us, but in terms of the scale of earthquakes, when you go from a 2.0 to close to 5, that's a huge change in the amount of shaking, how far it's felt, and does it damage buildings or not. Once you start getting above 5, that's when things are not looking so good for buildings. In fact, I'll give you a feel for that. We'll switch it from the seismograph to just some more context from the scale. This is from Michigan Tech. Once you get above a 5.5, and we had just above a 5.5 about, a decade or so ago, I think it was 2011, with that earthquake down in Virginia that was felt up and down the East Coast, including here, that's when slight damage to buildings and other structures can occur. Then once you get into the 6s, causes a lot of damage in populated areas. Then you start getting into the major earthquake, serious damage. You know, some of the stuff that we saw out of Taiwan this week, if you saw some of the damage there. And then 8 or more, boy, it's total destruction in some communities. So these seismographs didn't even register the aftershock, but I think it's so cool to see this around here because what's fascinating is earthquakes can quite literally be felt around the world. When they're strong enough, even though, let's say, it might happen here, it would register on a seismograph that's down in the ground closer to where some of the energy from the rocks just kind of shifting happens. And essentially what a seismograph is, it's like a pen that's just kind of dangling down and going like this and just kind of puts a straight line until if the ground shakes, it shakes. And instantly the USGS gets that information because we have a network of all of them around the country. So just to give you a feel for some of the ones here at home, I was looking at the map, and I'll zoom out. These are some of the seismographs just monitoring the earth shaking just around our little corner of our region right there. So I went right to that, pulled up some of the seismographs and went, oh yeah, that's definitely an earthquake. And that's just kind of feel what we've been watching today. The reason an earthquake happened is because of that right there. There's a fault. There's a long crack in the rocks. And that is all here from when present-day Africa slammed into North America. Just for fun, I got some post-it notes on that. Here's present-day Africa. Here's present-day North America. Watch what happens when you have two rock plates of the same weight. They hit each other and they buckle. And that's why we have the Appalachian Mountains. This happened a long, long time ago. So our mountains here aren't as big as the mountains out west, which are newer. Those mountains are from a different reason. Out in the west, a rock plate underneath the ocean, and rock plates from the ocean, that's a lot of weight, a lot of water in them, they're heavier. When that runs into a continent rock plate, it goes underneath. That makes big volcanoes, which make big mountains, by the way, because when lava droops out of the earth, it just piles up and makes mountains, like Mount St. Helens, for example, and it still is active from time to time out in the west. So when one rock plate goes underneath another, you get big volcanoes and you get big earthquakes. That's why the earthquakes are stronger out in the west. They still get weak ones, but that's why there's the potential for strong ones out there. For us in this area, why it is possible, and there have been strong earthquakes where it's not along a major fault like that of one rock plate going underneath another, it's pretty rare. It usually ends up being in the scale that we talked about in, say, that 4 to 6 range if it's going to be really big here in the east, just because we don't have any rock plates actively running into each other. Out in the west, the ocean rock plate is actively running into our North American continent and going underneath, so it can still cause volcanoes and earthquakes there. Here, back when the Appalachian Mountains formed and the rocks buckled and the land buckled and we made the mountains here in our corner of Pennsylvania and all the way up into New England and down into Georgia, well, that caused some cracks in the rock. The fault name just means there is a crack in the rock. I've seen it before in a cave out in Pennsylvania. It's really cool. I went in and you know, it's like a little tiny crack. You wouldn't think anything of it right there. Well, that crack in the rock is a fault and rocks can kind of shift along it. And around here, our rocks are still settling. And because they're still very slowly settling, and this happens over the process of thousands and thousands and even millions of years, you know, think how old the Earth is, right? Well, as they kind of settle and move around, they can release some energy, and that does happen. And those focal points for that energy being released, it is along faults. And so geologists have found that, as you see that yellow line right there, there's a system of faults in that part of New Jersey, and there's been earthquakes there. Kathy Orr sent this in to us to show you that, yeah, we've had earthquakes. Usually they're pretty minor. These all were around from 2014, 2015 or so. And then just last month, there was an earthquake around that 2.0 sort of feel, so people are waiting to detect it in the same area. So it's common in New Jersey and Pennsylvania to actually get earthquakes, which is kind of hard to believe, you know, when you think about it. But every circle you see right there is an earthquake. It's actually frequently happening in parts of Lancaster County and Berks County on the scale of a couple years. Same with this area in New Jersey and Hunterdon County that had the earthquake today. There just happens to be a crack in the rock there from when the mountains, the Appalachian Mountains formed, and over time, the rocks settle, just much like your bones settle. Sometimes I'll get up from the chair and I'll hear a little crack out of my ankle, or maybe you crack your knuckles. That's your bones settling, for lack of a better phrase. Technically, they're releasing gases. Well, the Earth does the same thing. It just does it much more slowly. So that's what's going on in terms of the earthquake from around our region. I'm waiting.
This dream for a long time.
That's good. Yeah, if you want to just move that one down. Yeah. I like that. Oh, because the that's fine. Yeah. That'll be good. tripod. I will make anything into a tripod if I need to. So I'm like, tripods are professional, and somehow tripods are the thing that bring me down.
Yeah, I'm gonna move these out there. As a matter of fact, we can actually move this table out there too. You wanna put it over here in the corner? And then we can slide the chairs right under there. We'll do the same thing that side.
Ooh. Did I do us a disservice? Can you all, did I screw it up, y'all? No. Okay. I'm sorry if I did. I'll wait for everybody. Thank you. Thank you. Where's Dom? Dom, if you just come right over here with the, thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Let me start by saying a special thank you to each of you for coming on such short notice today to hear our response to the seismic activity felt in the Philadelphia region. Earlier today at around 10:30 a.m., an earthquake of a 4.7 magnitude on the Richter scale impacted the east coast of the United States with an epicenter in Lebanon, New Jersey, which is about 50 miles west of New York City. I'm going to let our subject matter, emergency, and public safety experts to brief you more fully on all of the specific details in just a few minutes. However, I am here to communicate clearly and directly to the people of Philadelphia to let you know that your city and our administration is responding to this event swiftly and surely to ensure that we have done everything in our power to keep you safe. Our preliminary assessment of City Hall and the buildings in our municipal complex, this was an assessment that was performed by our public property department, is that our municipal complex sustained no damages. Thank God. And blessedly, no injuries have been reported thus far. I want to reassure the residents and the citizens of Philadelphia that every city and public agency involved in responding to these kinds of situations, it's important that you know we are all working and coordinating together, that we are sharing information and making sure that Philadelphia and Philadelphians are safe. Our Office of Emergency Management, our Philadelphia Police Department, our Water Department, our airport, PGW, PICO, PennDOT, SEPTA, PATCO, every relevant city and regional agency are coordinating and working together to ensure that everyone is safe. From all of the information flowing into us, and again, more information in a moment from our partners in the room who will go into the details, but my job is to let you know that the city of Philadelphia has come through this earthquake in very good shape. Our job is to keep our city safe 24/7, 365. I also right now have to send a special thank you to our president, Joe Biden, who immediately upon hearing the news ensured that every federal agency that we would have needed access to, had there been any catastrophes here in the city of Philadelphia, that they were on standby, waiting to hear from me and my administration. And for that, President Biden, I want to say thank you. You're now going to hear from Dom, who has done a yeoman's job leading our Office of Emergency Management. Dom.
Thank you very much, Mayor Parker. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dominic Morellis, the director with the City of Philadelphia's Office of Emergency Management. At approximately 10:27 this morning, staff here at the Emergency Operations Center in the Office of Emergency Management observed our building shake, and our 24/7 watch center was subsequently alerted by the United States Geological Survey that an approximately 4.7 magnitude earthquake had occurred somewhere in New Jersey. Much like many of you here in Philadelphia and Southeast Pennsylvania, and as we've come to learn all across the East Coast, we were too wondering, did you feel that? What was that? And started to put in our next steps. We're aware that those impacts were felt across the city and in neighboring states of New Jersey, New York, as well across Southeast Pennsylvania. After that initial shaking, by 10:40 this morning, OEM activated the Emergency Operations Center to monitor impacts, take any damage reports, provide public messaging, and support any needs as a result of the earthquake. We've been intensely focused on public safety operations, infrastructure, transportation, our healthcare facilities, as well as our community and cultural centers like schools and our historic buildings. I'd really like to thank as one of our primary partners, the School District of Philadelphia, who within an hour of us opening the doors of our Emergency Operations Center had staff side by side working with our emergency managers to assess any potential impacts to the schools. Later that morning, by about 11 a.m., and confirmation that there was a geological event, OEM alerted the public via our Ready Philadelphia mass notification system. We took our time to validate what was occurring and to make sure that messaging was getting out to the public to start to get ahead of what might need to come next. Since the initial earthquake, OEM has been in contact with over 25 public safety, infrastructure, transportation, and governmental partners to assess those damages, or potential impacts, as well as if there are any unmet needs. We are very glad to say that we have found no significant issues at this time. I repeat, we have found no significant issues within the city of Philadelphia as a result of that initial earthquake. All of our partners continue to report that their systems are normal and have not been impacted, and we stay connected with them into this evening and into the next several days. Aftershocks are possible, but not guaranteed. The likelihood is extremely low. However, you at home, like we will be into tomorrow, should remain vigilant. So I'm going to talk very briefly about some safety points that we all should take in the event there are aftershocks, which is very unlikely. Let me repeat, very unlikely. But in the event that there are aftershocks, but also just general preparedness, because as many of you may recall, this occurred once before in 2011. And so if an earthquake or aftershocks happens, protect yourself right away. Wherever you are, you're informed to drop, hold on, and take cover. Protect yourself by dropping on your knees and your hands, hold on to something sturdy, like a table or desk, and cover your head and neck with your arms. If you're driving or in a car, you should pull over and set the parking brake. If you are in bed, you should turn face down and cover your head with your neck and your pillow. If you are outdoors, stay outdoors, away from buildings. If you are inside, stay and do not run outside and avoid doorways. I want to repeat that. You should not evacuate the building that you are in during the trembling of an earthquake. We're also very glad that, unlike 2011, there were a lot less spontaneous self-evacuations, particularly in Center City, this time around. Lastly, a general preparedness message, as we are inherently in a risky world. We've been monitoring flooding over this last week. We know we're dealing with transportation impacts on I-95. Stay connected to information. Sign up for Ready Philadelphia, our free text message and email service, by texting the word Ready Phila, that's READYPHILA, to the number 888-777. And I know some of my colleagues will cover this, but lastly, if you do think that you have had impacts that are an immediate threat to life or safety, call 911. That is the action, to call 911 if you think you are in an inherently or an imminently dangerous situation. Thank you very much, and invite Commissioner Koppel.
All right. First, I want to thank the mayor for her leadership and just really give you an assessment of what we saw during this time period. We began immediately receiving 911 calls, as you would imagine. Many individuals not understanding what's going on. During that period, we received over 200 calls within our 911 in a very short period of 20 minutes. That volume would cause us to overring beyond our 10-second call receiving time period. And so I'm really, really proud of the men and women, our non-sworn professional staff in our dispatch, as well as the command level, recognizing that there was a significant incident going on. They shifted men and women from the dispatch area over to receive those calls. That movement, which they have been trained to do and do in an emergency, really, really helped us to start to answer those calls. We also want to thank the media and the work that Dom's team did to get information out very quickly. We were able to get our call base back down within 30 minutes. And so that's a really, really good job. Again, a collective effort. OEM immediately putting information out, the media capturing our information that went out, and we were able to really get our time down. We are back to normal operations at this point. We only have one reported incident of property damage. We have assessed the infrastructure of the Philadelphia Police Department, and we are fine and working effectively. So again, I just want to give credit to, as the mayor says, communication is so key in these situations, the prep work that has been done by the Office of Emergency Management, and again, thanking the media for really turning around and getting the information out quickly. That really helped us resolve an issue that was really surging into our system, and we continue to move forward in that process. Thank
you. Good afternoon. Thank you, Mayor. Today was a normal school day in the School District of Philadelphia, except two things. This morning we had a very fine celebration of our improvements in the school district and the Accelerate Philly Awards at Martin Luther King High School. We were pleased to see so many teachers and staff and principals present to receive awards for longevity and performance improvements. It was a half day here in the school district as our students went home early due to report card conference day for parents this afternoon. Two things I'll note, Mayor. First, immediately upon receiving phone calls about tremors and concerns from folks in schools, our operations team under Colonel Oz Hill immediately connected with Dom, as he said, in the Office of Emergency Management. Our Chief of Safety, Craig Johnson, was immediately in contact with Commissioner Bethel. And so, Mayor, it speaks to this interdepartmental communication and execution expectation that you've established for us, and we thank you for that. Not just in inclement weather. I didn't think it would happen for an earthquake in my tenure in Philadelphia, but stranger things have happened. And then finally, I just want to note that certainly we're working hard to improve achievement, and so we'll be using this as a teachable moment since you're an English teacher, Mayor, in our science classes, and I think we're going to be teaching about eclipses next week. Thank you.
Yes, and thank you all so very much for your patience. Any technical questions, I'm going to ask Dom if you would come forward and address any technical questions that anyone in the press has at this moment.
Yes.
One reported incident of property damage. Are you able to elaborate a little bit more on that? Which neighborhood?
I think it was just a house, right? Let me just double check. We just have a property damage at a house on the block. I don't have the specifics as to what damage was actually incurred in that.
In Center City or?
No, it's not in Center City. I believe it's in the northeast part of the city.
I'll add one quick thing to that. One of the things that we see in any kind of natural event is whether it's flooding, severe winds, that kind of thing, property owners see damage and quite can't determine whether it was a result of that event or before. And that's not to say on this specific instance that's the case, but it is a really good teachable moment to let folks know that your home preparedness, you should be routinely taking pictures of the conditions of your property. You should be routinely aware of what those issues are so that you can make then a better assessment, a better claim with insurance or whatever other resources might be available if that event occurs. So we'll continue to look into whether it's related.
Dom, if you will, can you restate the app to get real-time information from the city and a telephone number?
Yeah, absolutely. So the city, as a part of our standard public information protocol, will be pushing information through the phila.gov website. You'll see a banner there where you can be directed to additional information. But additionally, we have a free text message and email system called Ready Philadelphia. You can go online to phila.gov/OEM, tell us an address that's important to you, give us several phone numbers, several email addresses. However, if you only have about 2 minutes, probably by the time this press conference is over, you could text the word Ready Phila to 888-777, and you will be enrolled to get those text messages. We notified the over 35,000 folks who are enrolled immediately, again, around that 10:50 a.m. timeline, and we'll continue to push updates through there as well.
Mm-hmm. Thank you all so very much for coming on today. I wanted Dom to reread the information to you because you would be surprised to learn of some of the very creative theories that are floating amongst us as a result of the earthquake that occurred and the eclipse, people preparing for that historic monumental experience on next week. But it will always be important whenever we have a public emergency here in the city for all of the partners and stakeholders that you see here on today to stand before you and communicate directly to you, the people of the city of Philadelphia, that we are coordinating and that we are working together to ensure your public health and safety. Thank you all so very much for being here today.
Mayor, did you feel the earthquake?
I'll tell you, I did not. I didn't feel it. I was on the Benjamin Franklin Parkway heading to a meeting in 2 Penn Center. And I immediately began getting text messages and trying not to be rude in the meeting and look at my phone. One kept buzzing, and it was Clarina Tolson, who is a former streets commissioner, leader here, managing director here in the city of Philadelphia. And she wanted to just make sure that we knew what was happening. So I don't care if we're talking about our current leaders or former leaders here in the city of Philadelphia. Everyone was on point. And for that, Philadelphia, I'm grateful. Your city is working together in a coordinated fashion to ensure your public health and safety. Thank you. Thank you all so very much for being here.
Any recommendation for the next coming eclipse this Monday?
Certainly. Enjoy it safely, right? But very specifically, we know of several great events free to the public that are around the city. A lot of the institutions that are represented here are hosting a lot of those events, so please do participate in those safely. The two things as a risk manager, I would say, view safely. And so that means, one, don't stare directly at the sun. You need really specific glasses to do that, or a lens or filter over your camera. And the other thing I would say is don't be a distracted driver, don't be a distracted pedestrian. If you're going to participate, take your time, go somewhere safe. You can't pull over on the side of the road. You can't do it while you're driving, that kind of thing. So enjoy safely is a recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you all again for your support. We appreciate it.
I'll see you guys. All right. See you.
Have a great weekend if I don't see you, okay?
Thank you.
First,
Where's our...
be well, okay? Be well. Be well.